Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Span Report Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Span. This is episode number 298 of the report. And already we got a phone call coming in. Hold on just a second while I connect Cook real quick. Hold on, Cook, just a second. Let me get this set up. This is the first time I did it this way. Hold on. Let's see. There it is right there. I don't know why it didn't ring on this part. Oh, shit. Call right back, Cook. But anyway, yeah, man, this is episode 298 of the Span Report Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Span. And, yo, man, we are doing this here on a Saturday evening on June 6th. And as you guys already can tell, we got a guest coming in. She's calling in. We got the homie Cook from the HIGHly Inappropriate Podcast coming to fuck with us over here at the Span Report Podcast tonight. But of course, before we get into all of those shenanigans, I do need to let you guys know how to get in touch with us over here at the Span Report Podcast. Let your voice be heard. You can go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also email us here at feedback@thespanreport.com. That's feedback@thespanreport.com. Go ahead, leave us those emails, and of course, those emails will get right here and play live on the show as well. Hold on, let me see what's going on here. Oh, snap! Cook is here. Cook is here, y'all. But let me get back into the what's thing. Hit us up on the email, feedback@thespanreport.com. That's feedback@thespanreport.com. Go ahead, leave us those emails, and of course, we'll reply to those emails here live on the show. We got a few of those that we're going to have to reply to today, all right? So we're going to do that. Also, hit us up on our website, www.thespanreport.com. You can go there and watch replays of the show. You can vote in the polls when we put those polls up. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like, and of course, we appreciate every dime over here at the Span Report Podcast Network. And you can go to iTunes and or Stitcher Radio. Leave your boy Span and the crew a 5-star review on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio, man. It really does help the show grow. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Span Report Podcast Network, man. And as I told you guys before, we got the homie Cook from the HIGHly Inappropriate Podcast here with us. Say what's up to the people, fam.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
How do I sound?
You sound good.
Oh, okay, cool.
All nice and clear and shit. On like some Dolby surround. You got like the Dolby Atmos and shit.
You know, I do what I can or whatever for the people.
Yes, indeed.
I just came through to let everybody know that today is going to be real. I came with big free Kwame Kilpatrick energy up in the building. I came to be as ignorant as possible. I tried to eat my sandwich before I came on. You should have saw me in my kitchen chewing on this sandwich, trying to run back up here, and I was like, forget it. It is what it is.
You were trying to smash Cook. I'm sorry.
Listen, smash this sandwich, man. Smash it. Yep. Smang it. All
Indeed. We got a lot to talk about. But before we do all that, man, how you been? Man, I know this Corona been like fucking everybody. So how you been last time you been on the show? This is the last time we talked to you anyway.
I know, like the last time we spoke. I'm maintaining. I can say that I'm not complaining about anything. Shit's been real.
Yeah.
Say that, shit's got real, but just the same, like I'm maintaining. We maintain it right now, so I can't complain. I've been on sabbatical from my own show just to kind of let things unfold, because that's one of the things that I find works best for me. Is if I just kind of let it unfold. It's kind of like been my 2020 motto. Like, I'm not trying to force anything. I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just letting it all be what it's going to be and just be in the moment. But right now, so far, thankfully, everyone under my roof in my household is okay. It's healthy. Okay. And I'm beyond grateful for that. So I have to say that I've been blessed. I'm one of those people that can kind of say, quarantine has been working for me, because now that I'm home more, I've been actually getting a lot more done, stuff that I needed to do.
Yeah.
So I just look at it, count it all joy. That's all I can say, but for everybody else who does not have that same story, I just want to also be mindful that there are people who are really going through it out here. And I just wanted to make sure that whenever I did speak, that I could, number one, be knowledgeable about what I'm saying and maybe offer some alternatives, but then that will require for me to be engaged to a certain degree. So it's like all happening. It is all happening. But I'm still like, we still standing, we still here, you know what I'm saying? And I watched a little bit of the George Floyd funeral service that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just miss church. I have to say, as much as I miss brunch, I miss church.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I want to go worship, go to the house of worship. Absolutely. I want to tithes. I want to sing my hymnals. I want to give my testimony, all of that. I want to shake hands, and welcome my visitors.
Say neighbor.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm that person at church. I'm that neighbor. You gonna talk to me like the pastor told you to. First of all, don't, because if you shouldn't have came to the sanctuary if you didn't want to talk to nobody. That's how I see it. You could have stayed home at Bedside Baptist if you really felt some type of way, because everybody got an online church now.
See, I feel like if you like an introvert somewhat, like you might need to go to like a mega church or something. Because like when you knew, like when you whatever, don't nobody really recognize you because there's so many people in there. But if you go to one of those little bitty churches and the congregation is every bit of like 35, and you show up on a Sunday morning, they're like, "Yo, we got some visitors here." Everybody turn around, they look dead at you. You know what I'm saying? You gotta go to the mega churches if you're gonna be new. That's what I'm saying. Especially if you're an introvert.
No, if you go to the mega church, they're gonna make you stand up. They're gonna have a camera all in your face. It's too much.
It's funny. It's funny to talk about church, man, because I remember like some years ago, I want to say it's probably about 10, 11 years ago, I had went back to my great-grandmother's church here in Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. My great-grandmother was she was like a mother at this church, like real big influence at the church. And like she passed away back in 1990. Right. So she passed away in 1990, had this real big celebration for her and whatnot. I had moved away from Detroit, moved back to Chicago, moved back to Detroit. So I'm like, you know what? One year I was just feeling kind of down about things. And I felt like I needed some spiritual guidance back in my life. And I went back to that church. And the difference in how that church was ran was like so off-putting for me. Mm-hmm. Like it all had it almost become corporate, right? Like before they used to like have your names, like such and such gave this and tithes and offerings. And I get like, to a certain degree, you want your privacy. You don't want everybody knowing you gave $20 last week. But like, like they used to post that in the programs every week. And then it became now is like they had like, parishioner numbers and stuff. And then the pastor would he would always give the sermon on Sundays. Suddenly, the pastor was never there. The pastor out doing missionary work in the Bahamas. It's like, hey, man, there's missionary work that could be done right down the street. Why the hell he had to go all the way to the Bahamas to go do that? Mm-hmm. And like certain things like that would just like kind of make me like it kind of turned me off the church a little bit. Like I'm like, man, I don't like the vibe here. I don't like the way this is going anymore. Like it feels like a business transaction more than anything else. And I think to a large degree, that's kind of what's turned so many people off of, church as of late, that personal relationship to a large degree just isn't there anymore.
And I get that because I grew up in a small church. My home church is a very small church, but then when I got older and got back into church, I joined a mega church because it was so different from what I grew up with. And one of the things about the mega church that I never always felt fully welcomed. Yeah. Like my pastor knows my name. He knows my mama. He knows my daddy. He knows my cousin, my auntie, everybody, This church, this man, he didn't know us. He didn't know me. Yeah. In order for me to talk to him, like I had to stand in line. It was like a certain amount of time and stuff. So I'm like, well, what if I got to talk to him about something personal? I got to ask, a personal prayer request or something. I don't want everybody to hear what I got to say, Yeah. And then I would do Bible study, and I was involved in different ministries and stuff. And there were a lot of things to do. Mm-hmm. So if you like to do things and like to do it, and, like most people want to do it in a Christian atmosphere, like, okay, that's great. But one of the things that I did learn was that you can try different churches. A lot of people, and I think people do get on that, like, you start with your home church and then, sooner or later you outgrow it. And there was a time when I would go to that mega church and the message would really move me. The choir moved me. The sermon moved me. I was moved. And then there was one day I went and it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the same. So I knew I had to move on. And I ended up back to my home church. Now I'm a member of my home. I rejoined it and I'm on the rolls because when my dad died, he was buried there. So I was like, well, when I pass on, you're going to bury me next to my dad. Oh, shoot.
Right. Right.
That's where my family's buried. That's where I'm going to be buried.
Right.
But, you know, church really is wherever you go. And it really is about your relationship with God. When you have a personal, like if you can talk to him anytime. Mm-hmm. You stop whatever you're doing anywhere, anytime, and you can really talk to him and he'll listen. And I find that a lot of people, you know, it's like now people are starting to kind of learn like your job. If your job isn't fulfilling you, you get that resume out on the street, bounce.
Right.
And that can be the same thing with the church. You know, you got to find that right one, because one thing I'm not doing when I go to church, I ain't handing over no W-2s.
That's become a thing too, though. That's what's so crazy. Like,
that's how you know that is. I'm sorry, but no. You first of all, yes, in the Bible, when it comes time, you got to give 10%. Mm-hmm. That's all he's asking them. 10%. You think about all the stuff you get, everything that he's giving you. He only wants 10% in return. Okay. And no, I'm not one of those people that believes you should give your 10% at the expense of your bills or your rent. You know, I'm not there with it. But if it's a mega church, and that's one thing I did appreciate about the mega church that I attended, they did not ask for W-2s and they were staunchly against that. And it was one time where I wrote a check for my tithes and I was like, you know what? I have to be realistic. That check was a little too big. And I'm going to go ahead and I need that back. And you know, they gave me my check back. Because they were like, girl, we got 12,000 parishioners. Take your little money, girl. Like, it's okay.
It's all right.
Do you need any extra?
It's all right.
Do you need some more? Because we could give you some more.
Do we need to put you into like the sickest?
Look, listen. Single motherhood it's real. That shit was real, man. I was out here living my girl's real, child's real. But no, like things like that. But the other side of that coin was when I went for financial counseling.
Yeah.
Oh, then that's when they got a hold of my W-2s and they were like, well, you know, you're supposed to be tithing this amount. And I looked at her like, girl, I'm here for financial counseling.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not why I turned over these W-2s to you. So for me, it was just honestly a good sermon and a good choir get me where I'm going. Mm-hmm. I tell you what.
That's what's up, man. I think the last time I stepped foot into a church was ironically, it had nothing to do with like church though. It was Van Jones was having some sort of like town hall meeting here. And I actually released it as a Spam Report episode. Like it was Van Jones, Michael Eric Dyson, a guy by the name of Bankalay Thompson. I think he's a journalist for the Michigan Chronicle. And it was moderated by Mildred Gaddis, who's a radio personality here in the city.
How long did Michael Eric Dyson talk for real? Like, how many words did he use per sentence?
Well, see, when Michael Eric Dyson actually spoke, it was part of a panel discussion. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't actually there as long. Like the only person who actually had any, like kind of monologue type of discussion was Van Jones, and he spoke for like almost 45 minutes. And I think part of the reason why they even had Michael Eric Dyson up there was because Michael Eric Dyson is from here. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not to say that what he had to say wasn't pertinent to the discussion. It was just the fact that like they advertised this as a Van Jones sort of thing. And like what I was trying to do with the show was just like when things were happening within the city, if I had an opportunity to go, I would go to those things and kind of cover those things and bring it to the show. And that's part of the reason why I went. But it was real interesting, like listening to Van Jones talk amongst a room full of Black folks, as opposed to listening to how Van Jones talks when it's when he's on a television screen and he's trying to appeal to both sides of the aisle. It's just real interesting to like kind of watch him like maneuver in those ways. I thought it was real telling how different he spoke in that church as opposed to how he speaks when he's on CNN.
See, Van Jones is I don't trust him anymore. I don't trust him anymore. Yeah. And because maybe you said it and maybe I don't know. I'm beating a dead horse on this, but I feel like given the audience, you're going to get a different message from him.
Yeah.
And I don't trust him. And I did not like the way he responded to Obama getting rid of him, which I did kind of look at it like, well, why did Obama get rid of him?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like he got rid of him like he got rid of Jeffrey Wright. But something about it, I don't trust him. I'm good on him.
Yeah. So like I said, it was interesting, and that's why I put the podcast out. I put this out like it was just like earlier in the year. It was still cold outside, so it was probably like January, February sometime when I put that podcast out, because I sat there surreptitiously, put my phone up on the table and just hit record, you know. And that shit became an episode of the show, man. So that's
I ain't mad.
Now, I got some listener feedback that I have to get to.
Okay.
These are some emails that I got over the course of the week. Most of them were the result of some of the things I said on the last episode, which was episode 297. And the first one, this actually says respectability. It's titled Respectability. This comes from Lyrical Lilac Lynn. Okay. It says so
is that a gossip name? Like what?
I don't know. I'm a new listener, and this is my first time writing in. I caught a bit of your show from YouTube. Okay, shout out to YouTube, because we kind of back on the tube now. Mm-hmm. And I like how you're able to do this as a podcast and as a YouTube show. So I would like to give you kudos there, Mrs. Span. You do a good job. Well, I appreciate that, Lynn. I'm gonna just go with Lynn here. I'm finishing up your last episode, and you kind of went on this rant about being unapologetically Black, where you said something to the effect of not caring what white people think in regards to how we dress and act. And although I think I understand what you're saying, I can't help but think it's kind of irresponsible to tell people they should just go any place and dress and act any old kind of way for the sake of Blackness. How is that going to help people escape what could be a bad situation by exhibiting the same behaviors that got them there in the first place? Could you explain that a little more, please? Again, I like what you're doing here. I just need some clarity. All right. So, yeah, I did speak quite a bit, because like one of the things that was like kind of pissing me off last week, as the protests were really like at a crescendo and people were really, really pissed off and shit was hitting the fan, was the idea that, I saw so many people like shitting on Black people. I saw so many Black people shitting on Black people, talking about what about Black on Black crime? Why y'all fucking up y'all own neighborhoods? And it was some of the same rhetoric that we hear all the time coming from white folks, by and large. And so my thinking was this, is that like we can't worry so much about how white people think about shit, because if we did, for one, we center in their feelings about it and fuck how we feel about things. And then two, no matter what we do as Black people, there are going to be a contingent of white people who feel how they feel no matter what it is that you do. So you can't, walk around feeling like, yo, everything I do, I got to be on my P's and Q's, because, there's some white people that might be watching. So my thinking is this, right? Like, I'm not telling you to go to a job interview with your pants off your ass and, talking any old kind of way. I'm not advocating anything like that. But when you're talking about how you live your life, when you're out in your personal time, if you want to wear your pants off your ass, I mean, who the fuck am I to tell you not to wear your pants off your ass? It's not the look that I would go with, but some people like that shit. If you want to talk a certain way when you're amongst your friends, guess what? I don't feel any kind of way about you talking a certain kind of way when you're amongst your friends. And if that makes some white people that may be around uncomfortable, then damn it, they just gonna have to be uncomfortable, because I'm made uncomfortable every time when I walk out of the door trying to have to conform to the world that is bending to their will. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling you to live your life. Mm-hmm. Don't worry so much about what white people are thinking about how you live your life. Now, understand this too, is that you kind of made this assumption that Black people are in a bad situation and this because of their own fault. And I'm telling you here now that there's a system in place to keep people where they are. If this hasn't shown you anything but that, I don't know what you're looking at. There's a systemic thing in place to keep people at a certain rung of society. And so, yeah, you can go out and you can talk proper, you can do the code switching, you can wear the clothes and everything else. But ultimately, when you walk away from that interaction, if they're not an honest person, chances are, if they're a racist person, they still think negatively of you no matter how well you present yourself. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, listen, I can't worry about that, because worrying about that is going to keep me from being who I am. So I'm just telling you to free yourself from this idea that you have to constantly worry about how white people are going to perceive you, because no matter what it is that you do, those people are going to perceive you a certain way anyway. And I'm just telling you to live your life and not so much worry about how they feel about it. Worry about how you feel about being the best person you can be. That's the only thing that I'm saying. I'm not telling you to be irresponsible. I'm not telling you to go act like a damn fool at a church service and nothing like that. I'm not saying it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the other thing too, man. Like people feel like, yo, man, so I can just go to the job interview, man, and like I can
stop.
I can work for him. You know, like, nah, nigga, that's not what I'm saying. Like there's a time and a place for shit. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes even when you just like out and about, you worried about how white people are thinking. You worried about how well, them niggas over there loud. Okay, so we loud when we together. You know what I'm saying? Why you worried about whether or not they loud or not? Unless it's the movie, then I kind of understand. Like, hey man, all right, I am trying to hear this shit. You know what I'm saying? But still, I'm telling you, live your life not worried about the gaze of white people. That's all I'm saying.
You don't, that's also liberating as well, because
oh my God, it is.
I had to take my mom to her doctor's appointment yesterday, and it was interesting because in the waiting room, they were playing the NFL commercial with Black Lives, where they were saying Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And, her health home aide was with me, and she was just kind of like, well, what, what was going on? I was like, child, Drew Brees? I said, Drew Brees has to retire. And I said it. I was like, he's going to retire now. I was like, there's no way that you play in this organization and you make those comments.
Well, especially given now. Some of his teammates have already forgiven him. They've already.
Snoop Dogg forgave him too.
I just saw that too. Like,
but okay.
I just posted that on Facebook that Snoop Dogg, like, he appreciated the apology that Drew Brees gave, and I was like, man, that's interesting as hell, because this motherfucker he still got smoked for Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey. He out here saying, I accept the apology that Drew Brees gave. It's like,
why didn't even apologize to you? Man, don't shut up.
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, and this is the part that I like. So Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey's crime is supposedly tearing down black men, right? Mm-hmm. That is supposedly the crime. And in his explanation as to why he believes Drew Brees is sincere in his apology, he started talking about how much money Drew Brees has given to the city of New Orleans that is primarily black, right? And I'm like, damn. So all that money Oprah Winfrey been giving to these HBCUs, black male institutions specifically, Morehouse done got a shit ton of money up out of Oprah. I think she's given up to about $60 million to that school alone. She hasn't even given her own alma mater, which is also an HBCU, Tennessee State University, that kind of money. She just recently gave them $2 million as part of a COVID relief program that she's running across the country. So like this idea that like, okay, so he plays with, primarily black players, and he's giving money to, different organizations within a majority black city. And he plays along, amongst black men in this sport, this team sport or whatever. Somehow that makes his apology more sincere, because I'm still seeing this dude talking about, well, where's Oprah and where's Gayle talking about George Floyd. And I've seen this sentiment expressed quite a bit on social media. Like people are looking for these celebrities to start like to speak.
Where's 50 Cent? Where's he?
Where is he? But at the same time, like my thing is like people are looking for these celebrities, right? Like, and even the celebrities are doing this, but folks are looking for these celebrities to come out and have all these grandiose statements and everything else. And truthfully speaking, a lot of times, man, we don't even know if they qualified to speak on the shit. And the only reason I think we want them to speak on it is because we think that they're going to agree with our sentiments. Because the minute they say something and we don't agree with it, oh, it's fuck you then, right? You know what I'm saying? Like take Kanye West for example, right? Take Kanye for example. I love Kanye's music. Have a hard time listening to it now because of the things that Kanye has said concerning some of the politics, concerning some of the racial dynamics and everything. I have a hard time listening to Kanye now because of some of the things that Kanye West has come out of his mouth to say on a political, socio, commentary sort of thing. And like, yeah, for me, it's like, I don't know, I could really rock with that. And so there's that dynamic too. It's like, yo, we want them to come out and say things, but we also have to be, take into account, like, are these people qualified to be out here saying these things that we want them to come out there and say? And how different will we feel about them if they're saying some shit that we just fundamentally don't agree with?
I am glad that some of these people are exposing themselves, and that's what I said. Just let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's expose the wound and scab. Let's get some air on it. Let's just let it all out. I want to know who you are, and I've been saying this for a long time, and you guys heard it here first. I have a dissertation about Black Hollywood. I've always had it. When you go back and you listen to Black celebrities, especially when you go back into the 90s and the 80s and 2000s, when like the Rodney King verdict and things like that, there were a lot of Black celebrities who were condemning those riots. They weren't coming out and, rallying for the people. Ice Cube did Wicked, but wasn't nobody really in support of it like that, except for Black activists, like Farrakhan. And, back then, Black issues were a lightning rod. And Black celebrities always took the position, oh, well, we can't really speak on those because, white people buy my tickets and, I don't want to alienate myself from white audiences if I'm too Black, blah, 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 blah. And if you listen to some of them, they were in real live situations. And we already know that it is a pervasive mentality in Hollywood that, the white gaze is centered, it's focused on, and that's what you must appeal to.
Yeah.
We saw when President Obama got elected that it became socially acceptable to be Black. And that was the first time that we really saw Hollywood actors since the 60s even. Because back then, you had your Eartha Kitts, you had your James Baldwins, you had your James Brown, the football player, and oh shit, not James Brown. Oh shit, what is his name? Oh man, what is his name? How did I forget his name that fast? He was in OG's original Gangsters. What is his name? He played football. He was in
Fred Williamson. No, Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. Okay, yes. Okay, yes, Jim Brown. And you had them. And remember, we also had OJs. There was a lot of OJs back then. Mm-hmm. But I feel like now, and I noticed this, like when Obama was there, everybody was Black and proud. But the minute Trump won, you saw everybody started to divert back. And it was like, oh, well, we're all in this together now. And, it's kind of like, okay, well, that was over. Now we're back to the way it was. And it seemed like a lot of people kind of fell into that. And I feel like with Kanye, now just lives explicitly for the white gaze. I feel like that explains his marriage, his children. He's a long way from what Donda raised.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. And no, I'm not ever going to be cool with him. I can't do it. The way I see it, when I Black actors speaking to me, I feel like there's no excuse at this point because there's no longer that stigma. Oh, if I'm too Black, I won't get hired for this project. No, Issa Rae's kind of blown the lid off that one. She can root for everybody Black, and I've never seen her waver on that since she got here.
Yeah,
and I look at it as, what are you protecting now? What are you being silent for now? Like It's real now. And I think also, too, this is the perfect storm for it to happen. The Earth is dying. The Antarctic has fucking chlamydia. You gave the Antarctic Ocean chlamydia.
Listen, you remember that movie 2012?
Yeah.
They just need to rename that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
That's like bullshit. Hurricane season is coming.
They can re-release that movie today, call it 2020, make the bitch a documentary, and it will be it would be like an all-time seller. Like real talk, because the shit's real.
Everybody's gonna be like, oh man, it's gonna be the new Game of Thrones. I'm telling you, it's
crazy,
like hotcakes. But I feel like I want to know who these celebrities are, and for me, I think the best prime example of it is if we look at what's happening in Atlanta. There are two Atlantas right now. It's in Black Atlanta. There's the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
You got your T.I.s and your Killer Mikes and your Nene Leaks who got they Trump money and they Shekinah Joes, they Trump checks and shit. They don't give a fuck where the money comes from. They got the money now. Mm-hmm. They not trying to struggle and strife like they used to and shit. T.I. ain't going back to being a rubber band man. He's not going back to that. And I even saw 2 Chainz wobble a little bit with wanting to, be, there for the community, but also he like, man, I gotta get out here and get this money, bro. But it's like, cause like we can't be out here in a pandemic promoting our clubs and putting our people at risk. And if they are going to be at risk, yes, take that risk to take to the street to fight for our rights. Because the truth is, no matter how you feel about the riots or the protests, nigga, you gonna benefit from that shit. You gonna motherfucking benefit from that shit. And that's the part right there that I want to know. I want to know who really got them employees. I want to hear from the Black people, like these one fashion company, this one Black fashion blog that I was following on IG. They're like, oh, we're no longer going to be profiling this company, because a girl who was a Black intern there was like, oh no, I work there. Of course, the company puts out a Black Lives Matter statement and we're against it. She was like, oh no, bullshit. She was like, the majority of the people at your company are white or Asian. You were racist against the Asians who did work there in China. You were racist against the Latinos who were sewing your clothes and kept fucking with their pay and their work conditions. And then you had my Black ass do all this work as if there was a potential job for me in the end, and it wasn't. I worked twice as hard for less pay, and then you hired some other white person. Let's uncover all of that. This because it's systemic, and let's just rip it all. I want to see it all. And let's just expose it all. Honestly, it's got to all come out. I mean, because it's just...
I think it's all eventually going to do that, right? I think it's all eventually going to do that. Like, I guess the thing that I'm more so kind of concerned with is this, that, this idea that we need these people to speak. And I'm just like, nah, not necessarily. Like, I don't give the mic to the I don't need. Well, I think to
who are not shocking.
No, I think to a certain degree, there's this. There are people who value celebrity more than anything else in the world. And because they value celebrity, the people who have celebrity, they feel as though these people need to speak to these things because their celebrity means something to them. Right. And so if you have this idea that celebrity means that much to you, then it's important for these people to speak on this thing that you care so much about. Where I'm of the mindset where I don't need these niggas to tell me how to feel about what's going on in the world. Like, yeah, it's cool if you agree with me and all, but I don't necessarily need that coming from you. You know what I'm saying? It sounds good. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, you know what? I've been saying that shit. And finally somebody who got the platform to say this shit that I've been saying, they said now, and now it trickles down, right? That's the idea. But ultimately, I don't need them to like kind of validate what it is that I already feel. And I think that's the thing where like I think sometimes is people feeling the need to have these celebrities come out and have these statements, and it validates their own feelings. And that's where I think it becomes a problem where like, yo, you want these people to come out and say these things, but then they come out and they say something entirely different. And now you fucked in the game, or you feel in a certain way because, yeah, they didn't say what you thought they were going to say. Right. Speaking of which, we got another email, and this actually it was talking about Trina, because Trina.
Okay, hold on. Let me light my J. Go ahead. I'm gonna light the black. Let me light the black.
So Reggie writes in. Reggie said, really quick span. Just wanted to know thought about the black. This isn't the Trina thing, but we'll get to that part too. He said, have you seen this? Because he sent me 2 emails. He said, have you seen this? And it was a video of Trina talking about the protesters. As a matter of fact, let me see if I could pull the video up of Trina talking some stuff about protesters here.
Oh man.
Let's see. I think it was.
Why are you doing this? Why? Go ahead.
This is for the people. We got to cover all bases here. We got to do it right. Come on now.
In the latest string of celebs who say dumb things, Trina has entered the chat. And now the baddest bitch is being canceled over her tragic take on protesting.
I have so much to say, Miami. I am fired up, I am pissed off, and I am ready today.
While chatting with Trick Daddy on 99 Jams Radio, the Miami rapper went off, venting about curfews and the need to implement them earlier.
They need to make the curfew at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's how I feel.
No.
Keep everybody off the streets, these animals off the streets that are running around in Miami-Dade County acting like they have escaped from a zoo. Lock them up at 5 p.m. so the streets can be nice and clean. That's how I feel.
Of course, the statement shocked Trick Daddy, who tried to explain the need to let protesters let their voices be heard. But Trina was undeterred. She accused most of the protesters of doing it for the wrong reasons and revealed why she's not scared of the police.
All y'all fake for the protests and the fake. Oh, we so concerned about George Floyd. Half of y'all are marching and not even caring about this man. People are just doing it maliciously.
When the police get behind you and the red and blue lights come on, you're not supposed to be scared. You're not supposed to be scared.
I'm never scared. I have my license and registration and insurance. I'm not scared. I know my rights.
Trina's tirade went viral and she immediately began trending with people calling for her cancellation. Unfortunately, she's not the only one to be on the wrong side of the argument. Reality TV star Shekinah got blasted for crying over Gucci being looted. The Dream got lambasted over his insensitive.
Fuck them kids.
Was canceled over placing more importance on his friend's store than systemic racism and police brutality. And Lil Wayne was shut all the way down over his insinuation that the Black community is to blame for George Floyd's death.
If we want to place the blame on anybody, it should be ourselves for not doing more than what we think we're doing.
Overall, it seems like a lot of celebrities are loud and wrong on the issues. And it's causing fans to ask, why the hell are we looking to celebrities for leadership anyways? Valid question.
All right. It's a longer video, but yeah.
I did think we need to stop listening to these rappers though. So I'm okay with this. Here's the thing. Oh, that hurt to listen to Trina do that, because when she was in the Walmart cussing that white lady out because she was a nigger.
Yeah.
She was kind of brutish that day.
Yeah.
So, girl, like, listen. And the thing is, and we're seeing it though. For her, that was pure economics. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get it. When you are comfortable and Black, no, you don't want to upset the apple cart. No, you don't want to, kind of make things rough. But like I said before, I was told you're not supposed to get so far removed from your Blackness that you don't understand what's going on, or you just can't be around your people. And I really genuinely feel that at no point in time, I don't care how high I go, how far I reach, I cannot get so far where I look at Black people and I do not understand where they're coming from, right, wrong, and different. And we know that, we'll look for the information, but we know some of these celebrities aren't looking for the information. And some of these rappers are just plain old, just Jesus Christmas. Like, I was like, how did T.I. get on TV with with the mayor of Atlanta? Killer Mike, I've been giving him the side eye. Because he's so good at articulating the Black male struggle, but he's a big ass misogynist. Mm-hmm. And they just they don't have what it takes. They're the Keke Palmer of this activism stuff. And I think with the Black Lives Matter, I think they saw a lane where they felt like, oh, I could get in, and this is another way to raise my profile and sell some tickets. They're going to have to be honest with themselves. You got in it because you thought it was cute. But now that the rubber has met the road, when you see the sacrifice that's going to be required of you to really talk that talk and walk that walk, go ahead and expose yourself. Go ahead, let us know.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, like the thing with Trina.
That hurt.
Well, yeah. The thing with Trina, like when she said, like, I got my license and registration, I know my rights. Yeah. So do I, Trina. So do I. I got my license, I got my registration, and it still didn't stop 6 Chicago cops from pulling me out of my fucking car with their guns drawn.
Hello.
Okay, so like, yeah, I hear you, but yeah, I'm not hearing you. Like, there's a total disconnect with some of these rich rich Black folks. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's that disconnect where, like, you feel you are so far removed from like the daily interactions that regular ass Black folks have that sometimes you forget that your ass is still Black too. And then the minute something bad happens to you, what do? You revert back to your Blackness, and then all the Blackness kind of encompasses and holds you up. And then they talk about this bad thing that happens to you. And then if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, right? You go back to that. And so Trina was doing nothing more than what like some of these other people who I was lamenting last week was doing, was that whole what about Black on Black crime shit. Because the other part that they didn't play in that video, at least I didn't play it all the way through. But one of the other things that she said was a friend of hers store was vandalized during the demonstration, during the protest. And I think that's where a lot of her anger came from. She's like, well, what is that? What does my friend's store have to do with what happened to George Floyd? And I've seen some other folks kind of come out and say like, yo, I hear y'all, man, but like, we got these black-owned businesses that are sometimes bearing the brunt of these of the anger of the protesters. What do you say to someone who has lost their business, who's a black-owned business, and they're servicing the community? What do you say to those people who are losing their businesses based on the anger of what happened to George Floyd? And I like, there's something to be said about that. I don't have and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have the answer to that. Like, I don't want to be callous and say it's, collateral damage. I don't want to be callous in that way. But I also I'm understanding of the anger that it takes for a community to get to that point where they're out in the streets destroying shit. Yeah. Like it comes to a breaking point where they're at that, where this is what happens, right? Like, because they could have did it at any time, but this is when it happens. And like, and I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't right now. But I'm sorry, but the thing with Trina was, it was the what about black on black crime shit. It was the animals remark. Yeah. It was they should, the curfew should be earlier to keep, like all these things. Like, there was a level of self-hatred there. And this is what I was kind of speaking to last week, was like the level of white supremacy being so soaked into the DNA of this nation, where even black folks look at the worst in black folks and perpetuate that, that pathology that we're the worst of everything. Yeah. Like, we never give ourselves the grace to understand that, like, we're operating from a place of pain. We're operating from a place of anger. And sometimes, like, things like this happen because other means haven't worked. Mm-hmm. And it's only until, this level of anger surfaces itself, then sometimes it is when, like, you start getting people to move. It's like, I actually washed the dishes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't washed the dishes yet. And it ain't until I start threatening to whoop your ass that, like, the dishes suddenly get washed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
listen,
like that was a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, as a parent,
I'm saying,
why I gotta threaten to whoop your ass and raise my voice and stomp around here like I'm crazy to get you to clean that room? See, listen, that's the breaking point. That's the breaking point. It's gonna hurt me more than it hurts you, baby. I don't want to beat your ass, but I will beat your ass, okay? Because I want that room clean. And there's no negotiation. And listen, here's the thing. It always had to get to this point. Yeah. Because the truth is, they are complacent. We know it. Like when they were talking, that lady, I could feel her being uncomfortable in the waiting room when all that was going on. And I said something, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, my mama's in this ward right here, and they working on her and woo. But I was like, you know what? I want to know if the people in here are racist. I want to know how you feel about me, really. So I know that if I come in here, I may not get the best treatment because of how you feel about that. Expose yourself. I want to know, because this is pervasive in every layer, every institution, every entity, no matter where you go, it is there. Mm-hmm. And it is psychological at this point. And it's like, nah, you're not going to keep respect my mind. Okay, what you're not going to do is keep fucking with us like this. And I'm with the shits, because let me tell you something, as the black bougie, I get it. Because I did not struggle with whiteness until I became a professional and had to get up and go to work every day. Mm-hmm. I was insulated from the time that I left up in Marlboro. So from 1986 until 2007. Yeah, I knew to deal with white people. My teachers were black. My school was black. My neighborhood was black. My church was black. My doctors are black. My gynecologist is black. My dentist was black. Like, everybody was black. My HBCU was black. My deans were black. My principals were black. My administrators in high school were black. My bus drivers were black. Everybody was black. And it wasn't until I got out into the world, and it really was like, oh, that's when it all clicked, because I had the same naivete. White people are just so different. Oh my goodness, like, they're not really that bad. Like, you just kind of got to get to know them and stuff. Oh, no. Honey, it's systemic. They know what's going on. They absolutely know what's going on. And guess what? They don't give a fuck as long as they get their piece.
That's it.
And I've seen it time and time again. I done watched the best of them fold. I done seen them fold up so many smart niggas who really thought like your merit was all that it took. You don't know how many times, like even in the professional world, when I sit down and I look for mentorship and it's just us and we're Black, honey, we tell each other the same thing that my mama told me that I didn't believe until I've learned that fat meat was greasy. Like, honey, it's the Black tax. You got to work twice as hard. It really doesn't matter what you do. They're not going to give it to you because it's you. They already got that spot prepared for somebody else. And know that motherfucker barely got out of high school, but they're going to get that job and that raise and that promotion. And they'll look you in the face. Well, he's got a family to feed.
And we all do. That's the tripped out part. We all, but they don't care about yours. They care about theirs.
They don't. And that's what it all boils down to. Yeah. We pay taxes, Black people. We contribute to this country. And they take it and redistribute it amongst themselves. There's no excuse for the schools in our communities to be in the condition that they are in. Because we pay taxes. Niggas got jobs and shit. Mm-hmm. You got jobs, you work.
I'm paying income taxes in the city I don't even live in.
Right.
Right. Like that's the tripped out part. Like I pay taxes in the city of Detroit. I do not live in the city of Detroit. But the city gets a piece of my money. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it makes no sense whatsoever. Right. Makes no sense whatsoever for a lot of the conditions to be what they are in places where they're where the population is largely African American, especially like when we know that these cities are reaping the benefits of that income and just not being necessarily distributed in the ways in which it should.
Not to mention, color me stupid when I was watching. Did you watch the LAPD council meeting? They cussed the LAPD out. Slim. They cussed them the fuck. That shit was amazing. It's on YouTube if you ever get a chance to watch it. I mean, it was cathartic because they were just like, yeah, hey, how you doing? How does it feel to be like just the living piece of shit that you are? I mean, like they just went ham on them. Did you know that the LAPD's police budget was $6 billion? Did you know that there are police agencies in this country whose budgets top the fucking billions, but we don't have school districts bringing in that much money?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, think about how
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Trust and believe, Cook, it's a lot of money. Like the thing is, it doesn't surprise me because of where we are. We live in America.
Homeless crisis in LA.
I hear you. Okay. It does not surprise me when you think about this for a second.
Okay.
Just think about this for a second. It doesn't surprise me in the sense of this. When we look at how much the United States government allots for the Department of Defense, and you see how much money that the Department of Defense actually, the Pentagon, how much money they actually get. And a lot of times they're getting money that they don't even need. And they'll have to go buy shit that they don't even need or want. And you got to spend it though, right? And you think about how much they try to roll back how much funding the Department of Education gets and how much we put into the school systems across the country, and how Betsy DeVos currently is trying to strip out a lot of the funding for a lot of public schools and put them into private institutions. So it doesn't surprise me that it would also be something somewhat similar in places like on a more local level where, we'll prioritize police and defense, so to speak, policing and defense, as opposed to prioritizing the education of the populace, the education of the kids, because if they're educated, then you can't control them as much because they know too goddamn much. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they would spend that level of money on the police department, yet never find that same financial wherewithal for the education department. It does not surprise me one bit. Doesn't surprise me one bit.
It's disgusting. And when they started saying defund the police, I said, wow, these niggas went hard. But the more and more I really read into, some of these theses and what they're proposing instead, I'm like, bruh. Yeah.
It's quite
absolute sense.
It's quite
more
a bit.
Social workers. Yes. Boots on the ground. Train them, pay them.
Yep. We got one last email here. And this is also from Reggie. He's basically asking, he said, I just wanted to know what you thought about the Breakfast Club having Rush Limbaugh on their talk show about racism in America from a conservative white man's perspective. I'm going to just tell you this right now, Reggie. I thought that was a colossal waste of time, and I said so the moment I seen it. I thought it was a fucking waste of time. I listened to it only because I was at work, and I like all the podcasts that I listened to, I had ran out of episodes. So I'm like, well, shit, I got to find something to listen to keep my mind off, like kind of keep me moving. I listen to music, podcasts, and shit to keep me moving while I'm at work. And so I'm listening to this shit, and I'm just like, man, why? Fucking why? And then it made like the thing of it is this, right? Here's two tidbits for y'all. I want y'all to walk away with. One, both of those are like iHeartRadio. I think Clear Channel, which owns the radio stations by which Rush Limbaugh and the Breakfast Club are broadcast through. Like Clear Channel is a conglomerate, like sort of media company. They own a lot of these radio stations. It's part of the reason why the Breakfast Club is syndicated all across the country, because they bought up a lot of your local radio stations, kicked off your morning radio show, and gave you the Breakfast Club. Yeah. That's one thing. The second thing is, this was an opportunity for Clear Channel to get both of their most popular radio personalities together in one spot and act as though they were talking, like we're going to have a substantive conversation about racism in America from two sides. It's important to listen to both sides of the story. I'm here to tell y'all right now, sometimes it ain't always two sides to a story, bro. Sometimes it's just like, yo, there's the truth and then there's some bullshit. And a lot of times, man, I ain't got to listen to the bullshit to know that it's bullshit. And having Rush Limbaugh come on that radio show and talk about like white privilege being a myth, a total like fallacy of the liberal intelligentsia and all this other bullshit. Like, come on, bro, my life experience tells me different. And truthfully speaking, I know different, and then the other thing that I kind of want you to walk away with is this: it gave Rush Limbaugh an opportunity to act like he gave a damn about what happens in the Black community. And it gave the Breakfast Club yet another opportunity to act as though they are some place you need to go when talking about politics in the Black community.
They are not. And
that's the thing. Like, you've seen the elevation of Charlemagne the God as some sort of political pundit almost now. You see this motherfucker on MSNBC, CNN all the time now. Like, really? I see this motherfucker. Ari Melber on MSNBC has him on there. Don Lemon has had him on their show. Aaron Burnett has had him on. Anderson Cooper has had him on. Joy Reid has had him on her show. Like, Charlemagne the God has been elevated to a point from that show simply because, and partly because he's been talking about like this Black agenda and all these presidential candidates need to have a Black agenda. But I'm like, yo, man, where is that heat for Donald Trump? And why haven't the Breakfast Club had that level of heat for Republican candidates, even when like not even just going back to like this political cycle, but go back to 2016. They didn't have many Republican presidential candidates come on the Breakfast Club. They had Hillary Clinton, they had Bernie Sanders come on. And what did we get away? What did we get from Hillary Clinton coming on there? Hillary Clinton honestly said that she carries hot sauce in her bag, and niggas lost their fucking minds.
You know what? They had DJ Envy had more heat for Jesus and Mero because they clowned him, and I'm over it.
I'm just saying, like, it was a colossal waste of time, man. Like, I get that some folks that like, and some folks genuinely like the Breakfast Club, and I'm not here to take that away from you. I'm just saying, like, to a certain degree, though, like, I think the elevation of the Breakfast Club has been coordinated. I think it's been, I don't necessarily think all of it is warranted. I may come across as a hater by saying that, but I'm just saying, like, truthfully how I feel. I just feel like, yo, if you go into the Breakfast Club for political commentary, you might not be like, you probably like should be looking into more sources. The Breakfast Club can't be your spot to go get political discussion, because there's so many places more suited for it. You know what I'm saying? So many more places more suited for it, whether that be podcasts or whether that be like, yo, I know y'all be mad at mainstream media and all, but guess what? The Breakfast Club is mainstream media. You know what I'm saying? So like, yo, listen to like CNN, listen to MSNBC, read some of these fucking newspapers in the digital form. You ain't got to go out there and go get the paper. You can go read the articles as opposed to just reading the headlines to them. and then, you'll be a little bit more informed when someone does show up on the Breakfast Club, or when someone does show up on one of these television shows. You'll be more informed and able to point out the bullshit as it happens. You can fact check these motherfuckers in real time when you know what's going on. So that's just how I feel about it, man. That's just how I feel about it.
No, honestly, when I saw it, I was like, I stopped. You know who else cursed? Soledad O'Brien fucking cursed when she saw that
I love following Soledad O'Brien.
And I was like, y'all done made.
She is one of my favorite follows. She is so trill on Twitter, man.
Y'all done made Soledad O'Brien say fuck on Twitter. Like y'all, like that. She was like, what the fuck is he gonna do there? And I was like, sis.
Soledad was tired of the shits, man. She was like, this is
like y'all really like Soledad was. I could tell she was like, I'm gonna call Charlamagne. I know him. I'm gonna call him now and ask him what the fuck is he doing, because that's a valid question. Like, what the fuck was that supposed to accomplish? Nothing. I knew it wasn't going to accomplish anything. Rush Limbaugh was not about to say anything of importance to me. He is vile. All of the horrible things that he's already said.
Yeah, I mean, I think about this, right? Like Rush Limbaugh is acting as though he thinks it's a grave travesty to what happened with George Floyd. Everyone that's not like an unpopular view, position to hold, because most people with common sense would look at what happened to George Floyd and say, that was fucked up and shit never have happened. But then you look at what, you go back into some of the things that Rush Limbaugh has said about the other people who have been killed by the hands of the police. Eric Garner, for one, and he basically said Eric Garner, that wasn't even a chokehold that killed Eric Garner. Or Black Lives Matter was built on the lie. These are the things that Rush Limbaugh says on the regular basis. So why then would you think you would want to have a constructive conversation with somebody who says shit like that on a topic as sensitive as this one and think it's going to be a productive conversation? I didn't see the point of it. And it goes back to this idea. This goes back to this thing. And I used to believe this too. I used to believe that if we can get these two people from these two opposite sides of the spectrum,
ooh, baby, let it go,
and have this conversation, maybe we can ground. Maybe we used to have. There used to be a show that we did here called The Art of Disagreement. I used to do that with the guy who got me into podcasting, and as my politics started changing over time, his started kind of like becoming more extreme to the other way. We decided we would have these debates over the phone, and we would, rehash these debates on the podcast. But ultimately, it got to a point for me where I was like, yo, man, I don't know if these things are really up for debate. It's not necessarily a debatable topic to me anymore. This is what it is. And if you think that's up for debate, then I don't know if I can rock with you like that. You know what I'm saying? It became one of those things where it was this is what it is. And so I'm at a point now where certain conversations I don't even entertain because I don't think it's up for debate, whether someone's existence is, up for grabs or anything like that. So yeah, man, I think it was a fruitless endeavor. And it was funny, a few days later, to watch Charlamagne go on somebody else's MSNBC show to say, it was a waste of time. Nick, I told you, I saw that coming a mile away.
Because now it didn't go the way you thought it was going to go either.
It didn't go the way he thought it was going to go. So, it is
nobody walked away with anything from that. You probably didn't get the ratings you wanted. Your ratings probably took a hit after that shit. Enough people know enough about Rush Limbaugh to look at you like a whole ass fool. And I've been gave up on them. I've been gave up on that rating show a long time ago. So
yo, man, y'all tripping out, but guess what? We've been an hour here. We ain't even got to the fucking news yet. But let's get to the news, y'all. All right, our first story here in the news has to do with George Floyd, not ironically, but still, y'all know George Floyd. The three other officers who were kneeling on George Floyd and standing around while George Floyd was having the life choked out of him, they have also been arrested. I'm going to say this right off top. Doesn't happen without that public pressure that we saw in the streets all over this fucking nation. So for those of you who had a problem with the fact that these people were out here, demonstrating, tearing shit up, having these open confrontations with the police. I'm gonna tell you right now, this does not happen without that level of agitation. We're gonna read the story here. This comes out of CNBC.com. It says 3 former Minneapolis police officers were charged Wednesday with aiding and abetting murder in connection with the death of George Floyd in their custody, according to court records. In addition to Derek Covens, a fourth former officer who had already been charged with the third-degree murder in the case, will now be charged with second-degree murder in addition to the previous charge against him, according to the records, which were filed in Hennepin County Court by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The three ex-cops who had not yet been facing charges, Tao Thao, J. Alexander King, and J. Alexander, that's a fucking restaurant, and Thomas Lane, assisted Coven in arresting Floyd on Memorial Day on the suspicion that Floyd passed a counterfeit bill. All 4 officers were fired last week. Colvin, who was white, was charged on Friday with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter after video footage emerged showing him kneeling on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes as Floyd, a black man, lay handcuffed, crying out that he could not breathe. So, yeah, man, just like I said, that does not happen, man, without the public agitation, without the public pressure that was like people tearing shit up out here in the streets, man. Like this would have been one of those things where they would have kept going, no charges filed, no grand jury summoned, or if they did have a grand jury, the grand jury would have, opted not to indict, and we'd be going to this whole thing all over again. Now, I got a question for you though, Cook. Got a question for you. And this is not only just for Cook, but like for those of you got, for those of you who are listening, with the way things are going now, do you feel like this time is different from the other times we've seen this movie?
In a sense, yes, because it's the perfect storm right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only COVID, it's unemployment. It's the health system is back in crisis. The housing market is back in crisis. The environment is in crisis. The food supply is on the brink of crisis. Now is the time to say, you know what, fuck it. And I think for some people, American people, they're realizing, yeah, they may have supported this dumbass, but if they keep going, they're not going to make it. If we keep going, we're not going to make it. And I think it's now gotten to a point where enough people are saying, you know what, enough is enough.
Yeah.
And so this time, I think it will be because, listen, we don't got nothing to lose. I don't see these people stopping. Everyone lost their jobs. Look, now they all have time to be out in the street because nobody got no work to report to.
Well, interestingly enough, though, right? So, like, a lot of these states have like kind of reopened. I know Michigan, the stay-at-home orders have been pretty much that's pretty much over and done with. I think the only industry here in the state that isn't necessarily back open all the way is you can't go get your hair cut and you can't get your hair done, that kind of stuff. But by and large, a lot of the restaurants are starting to open with limited capacity in the restaurants. And I've been back to work now for like the past 3 weeks. Society seems to be like opening back up as the sun comes out, as the weather gets warmer. It seems like society is trying to open back up and everything. But yeah, to your point, lots of folks still are unemployed. Lots of folks still are at home. Lots of folks still are trying to figure out how they're going to make the ends meet. And then you add this, and it's like, yo, man, at a certain point, I can't take this shit no more. Even you're starting to see Republicans actually sound like rational fucking people. And I'm just like, wait a fucking minute, man. Like, y'all have abdicated y'all position as rational motherfuckers the moment y'all embrace Donald Trump and everything he's been doing. Y'all have just given away your moral authority on any given topic because you look the other way concerning a lot of the bullshit that Donald Trump, what's the word I'm looking for here? There you go. And like, it's just weird, like listening to them now talk about how bad a travesty this is for George Floyd, and then you got these corporations who used to not say nothing are now coming out and saying like, oh man, like we Black Lives Matter and we're sorry that we didn't listen before because y'all people was tearing shit up. Right? People was tearing shit up. This is the part that like, and it reminds me of that statement that I opened up the show last week with the cold open of Fannie Lou Hamer, who was basically saying like, yeah, if we can't have this freedom that y'all got, then y'all ain't gonna have it either. We're gonna tear this shit up. And ironically, it took shit getting told the fuck up to get a lot of people to catch everybody's attention. And we're not now even you got the NFL saying, so about that whole kneeling thing, we was wrong. And our bad. Black Lives Matter. We with the the silent. We with the protest and everything. Like it's just I feel like it's a little bit different, but the cynic in me is like it's different because it's an election year and they know like the wave is going one way and they don't want to be caught amongst that wave.
And they don't want to be caught amongst that wave because like right now, here's what I'm liking. There was a guy, and this just happened in Maryland. He was on Facebook talking reckless. And it goes back to having shit to say about Trayvon Martin. So somebody, started pulling together all his screenshots, and next thing you know, they were outside his businesses, and they said we started here. He's like, he's got 3 more stores, so we're gonna go down there and demonstrate. They demonstrated it in front of all 3 of his stores. Now who's making apology videos, crying and shit? No, honey, we're not gonna shop there no more. And then it was so funny because another shop was like, due to this new influx of customers, we may not be able to take your order. So just bear with us. We'll get to you, woo-de-woo, and boom, there was. Listen. They're organized. They're ready. They have plans.
Yeah,
okay? They have. We are circulating documents, Google Docs, links, and it's all really started. If you pay attention, there were people who became activated when Trump became elected. There were a lot of people organizing and demonstrating and putting together things and working on how to combat different things and stuff like that. And it was a long, hard fight to get to this point, but we knew he was going to try and pull some shit and say he wasn't going to go away peacefully. But I feel like with the generals now coming out and even saying something, to me, it's more along the lines of, I think they've reached a point, which it's unfortunate. Even they can't justify this. You're calling in the National Guard on your own people. Who does that? Listen. Barack Obama would have been out. Look, Sasha, we were hearing about Michelle and Sasha snuck out. Sasha and Melania took Michelle out the back stairwell where they smoked their pot at and showed her how to get out of the White House so they could watch the demonstrations. Okay. Look, this bunker bitch. I'm just
bunker bitch.
Bunker bitch. He's a bitch, man. You a bitch. And man, can't no general worth his stripes really gonna stand behind no motherfucker like that. Keep it one, man. Somebody's got to pull their nuts out.
I don't know. The Marine Corps just now decided they was gonna ban the Confederate flag on their institutions. And I feel like to a certain degree, there are some who agree with this motherfucker, and it's the reason why he's been allowed to get away with so much shit for so long. Because there's the precedent of it's the president, and this is how you're supposed to comport yourself with the president. But I think this dude, I think he presents an extreme example of how not to comport yourself as president. And I think there has to be some level of autonomy given to the people who are working within that administration to kind of push back on some of the things that have been going on. Like I'm listening right now because I got the audio book. I've been listening to the Very Stable Genius. And as I'm listening to this and listening to all of this shit that has been going on with not only from like, you know, the news that we all heard about, but some of the things that like the discussions that the people within the administration have been having concerning this dude. And the joke has been about like how much turnover there's been in the Trump administration. Like people have been, he didn't have like 4 or 5 different chiefs of staff. He didn't have like 2 or 3 different fucking Secretary of Defenses, a couple of Secretary of States. He's only been in office 3 years. And like you start hearing some of the stories that are coming out of that White House from people who have worked in that White House. You're like, man, it's a clusterfuck in there. Like it's a clusterfuck in there. And so there was a general when they were clearing out the protesters so that he can go do this photo op shit. There was a general in full fucking fatigues walking right behind him, like, you know, this is what we do now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we gonna shoot motherfuckers with rubber bullets. We gonna have some pepper spray or whatever, because they saying it wasn't tear gas, but we're gonna have some sort of level of pepper spray to get these people up out this park so this dude can go walk over here to this church and pose with this Bible, and that's it. Like, this is what we do now. And then they're gonna block off the White House for a full city block. Like, you can't even go up to the White House and take a picture no more because this dude was that fucking threatened. And he's talking about like it's like this slow erosion of how you even look at the presidency, right? Because people simply do not respect this dude. And to a certain degree, when you don't respect that dude, to some degree, you start to not necessarily respect the office much anymore because you don't respect how he became the leader of this fucking nation, right? So yeah, man, it's some strange times we are living in. Now, another thing, here's another story that we got, and this actually has to do with some more police officers who have been fired and who have also been arrested and charged with some shit. Like, this is why I'm like, yo, does this feel different to you? Because 6 Atlanta police officers were also charged after a confrontation that they had with some college students.
Uncle's bare-assed uncle.
Yeah, you're gonna say something. Go ahead.
I'm glad, even though the majority of those police officers are Black, unfortunately, I'm glad they got arrested. Because even if you are a Black cop, you damn sure better know better.
So here's
because how many Black cops get shot by their white coworkers in the line of duty?
So here's the thing, and I've been reading this book, Locking Up Our Own by James Foreman Jr. And like, there was a passage in the book, and it kind of talked about some of the first Black police officers that were hired across the country. And like, Black people at the time were happy because the idea was if we had more Black police officers, then they would be more in tune with the community and they would know how to police the community, how to treat us within the community. Because yeah, although we are Black, some of us are Black and some of us have status, right? And so we want our status to be recognized by how we're perceived by law enforcement. And so what happened was these people, these first Black officers, they had these hopes heaped upon them that they were going to be equitable police officers and that they would be more in tune with how to police the community. And what you found out was that these guys who were the first Black police officers, by and large, they were just happy to have a job because they needed a job. And they weren't so much interested in the idea of, some sort of specialized policing for the community. They just wanted a job. And so what happened was that they started internalizing some of the same racist ideas, some of the same racist ideologies about Black people, believing in that Black pathology, that white supremacy, like, in being in that occupation, like, kind of, inserted itself into them as well. And so it took me back to that, like, to think that, like, Black people we've had this idea that, like, if only we had Black people in these positions, then such and such, this is what we think would happen. And that hasn't always been true when it comes to Black police officers. And so it was interesting that the vast majority of the people charged with this shit here were Black police officers. I got video of this. So let me go ahead and pull this video up so we can all take a part in this here. Let me go ahead and play this right now. Let's see what they're talking about.
Accused of using excessive force when arresting 2 local college students. Now the police union is fighting back, saying these officers weren't even notified before the charges were filed. So we're bringing in Channel 2 investigative reporter Nicole Carr live. And Nicole, there's a lot of details here. You have a deeper dive kind of into a look at everyone who was involved.
Yeah, let's start with the police union. You have them on one end saying, hey, there was not a proper investigation by the DA's office nor APD and all of this. And you have the district attorney saying he's seen enough in 3 days to file these charges. And then you have a lot of eyes on this all over the world, right? And it started with live TV on Saturday night.
The conduct involved in this incident, it is not indicative of the way that we treat people in the city of Atlanta.
Damn.
Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard wasted no time charging 6 Atlanta police officers involved in this Saturday night's tasing and arrest of Morehouse and Spelman students Messiah Young and Tanaya Pilgrim.
I feel a little safer now that these monsters are off of the street.
But the police union is calling foul, saying there's yet to be a thorough investigation.
What the fuck is that to investigate? Hold on.
Gone 2 to 4 years.
That'd be the other shit I'd be worried. Like, I'd be trying to figure out. I'm like, so there has to be an investigation, as if we're not all watching this shit right there in front of our fucking faces.
Right.
What is there to investigate? As I'm looking at that video, because this is actually the first time I've actually seen the video. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen it. Like, it looked to me like, first of all, the window was broken. I thought that was fucked up. Yep. But then his back was turned when the officer decided to like tase him at that particular point in time. He wasn't even looking at the officer, and the officer tased him. So that's why I was like, oh shit, because that's actually the first time I've seen this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was just like, they really lit into them, and they were really going home. They were on the road. They didn't know about the curfew.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Make a decision on it. Had officers sitting on desks for 2 to 4 years, but yet he can do this really quick in 3 days. I think there's a little more motivation here than trying to, serve justice or to do the right thing.
The students say they got caught up in protests after grabbing a bite to eat. Just a few hours earlier, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms had announced a 9 o'clock curfew. The officers yanked them out of their car. When the students refused, they were tased and thrown to the ground. Officers broke a car window and slashed a tire. Pilgrim was handcuffed and put in a police car. Young's wrist was fractured. He spent the night in jail. The young couple's attorneys believe they were targeted after they started shooting video of another Morehouse student being tackled.
As soon as they try to capture that misconduct, they become the victims of the very same kind of misconduct.
Howard announced charges against all 6 officers involved. We took a look at records immediately available to us through the state and APD. They were all in good standing with the state. Willie Sauls Jr. had nearly 30 years in law enforcement, including time on the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. Just 2 months ago, he'd completed cultural awareness, use of force, and de-escalation training. Days prior to the incident, Officer Roland Claude had also completed the same training. He's been with APD for 13 years and is facing a charge for damaging the student's car. In March of April, 21-year vet Officer Lonnie Hood completed his training in the same area. Last year, taser recertification was completed. He's charged for his use of the taser on Young and aggravated assault on Pilgrim. It had been about a year since Officer Armand Jones completed his training. He was the freshest officer in the bunch, going from cadet to officer in October of 2018. He faces an aggravated battery charge for throwing Young on the ground and pointing his gun. Before he was charged, Pilgrim identified him as Officer A. Jones.
Walking me and Messiah off, he says that he was going to shoot us. Like, this is stuff that shouldn't be said after all the trauma.
Mm-hmm. And so those 4 officers are confirmed on admin leave as of this evening. Then you have Officers Ivory Streeter and Mark Gardner. Those were the first 2 veteran officers fired earlier this week. They are also charged and had recently completed the same training. And all of the officers are expected to turn themselves in by Friday. Of course, this is something, a process we'll continue to follow. Reporting live, Nicole Carr, Channel 2 Action News.
All right. So, yeah, that's wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't see that part about them recording another student being slammed. So that made all the sense to me. All the sense. And I just was like, yeah. They do too much. And you're right. I read that article where they talk about they in order to be a police officer, you do have to internalize some of the self-hatred that you hear. That's how else would you move up the ranks in an organization?
Yeah,
it's funny. So whatever. I got locked up last year. I went, or whatever, to holding.
Free cook.
I had a warrant.
Our t-shirts made right now. Free cook.
Or whatever. I paid my fine or whatever. Fuck them. But nah. When I was in there though, like some of those little simplify ass bitches standing around like they was doing some shit. I was like, man, y'all Officer Fife assholes. And you could tell, like, yes, y'all was not the type of motherfucking niggas. I could tell by the way you wear your pants, you won't shit in high school.
Yeah.
I was so mad. Because there was a couple. I was really in there on my excuse you, sir. Like, I'm not a career criminal. I'm a civilian who's having a bad day, and you're not going to talk to me like that. You're going to maintain your respect and dignity to me inside of this place. I tell you what, shit. I was upset. I was hot, but whatever. Defund the police is what I say, and that right there, for most Black police officers, they do have that frame of mind.
Yeah,
they really do, and it's sad.
And that's the thing. It's like just the idea of just like simply hiring more Black police officers doesn't necessarily solve the problem. I know a lot of folks, they believe that, like they have these, and maybe they too grew up in the community and they understand these interactions. But I think the other part about it is being socialized as a police officer, being a part of that group. Immediately, I think kind of has more of an impact on how they move as a cop as opposed to how they move within the community while they're policing said community. Because they, here's the thing that I think a lot of them probably, you kind of alluded to this in that like it's like friendly fire incidents where like a white cop maybe shoots a Black officer not knowing the Black officer is a police officer or some shit like that.
Mr. Presbo.
Right. Shout out to The Wire. But not only that, like just, the idea that somebody has to have your back. And if I don't have their back while they're out in the field doing some fuck shit to people who look like me, then when I'm in trouble, then I'm going to need somebody to have my back. And maybe if I do this, if I turn the blind eye to this, maybe they'll turn a blind eye to when I might find myself in a troubling situation. And I think that's what happens by and large with a lot of these cops, that they feel like they have to participate in that as opposed to just doing a great job of policing. But I don't know, because I'm not a Black cop. Maybe I should have a Black cop on the show and we could talk about it. But man, that's in the news. We got one more story here in the news that I thought was very interesting, because it seems like it does kind of seem like coronavirus has been hitting the back burner on the news. And Dr. Fauci says that Donald Trump no longer talks to him much more, or the rest of the coronavirus task force. He hasn't talked to them in weeks.
Ho, brother. Whoa. Now, you got too much dip on your chip.
So we get this from businessinsider.com. It says Dr. Anthony Fauci, the U.S.'s top infectious diseases expert, said President Donald Trump was now only rarely meeting with public health experts on the coronavirus crisis. In an interview with the health news outlet Stat News, published early Monday, Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, was asked whether he was in frequent contact with the president on the progress of vaccine candidates. No, Fauci said. We used to have task force meetings every single day, including Saturday and Sunday, and about 75% of the time after the task force meeting, we'd meet with the president, Fauci added. So I was meeting with him 4 or 5 times a week back a month or so ago. But as you probably noticed, that the task force meetings have not occurred as often lately, and certainly my meetings with the presidents have been drastically decreased. The U.S. has been consumed by protests and riots in cities over the past week, but the nation also faces a second problem: how to get out of the coronavirus crisis. COVID-19 has killed more than 100,000 Americans, and the pandemic has devastated the economy. Meanwhile, Trump has clashed with health experts, touting unproven treatments and ignored the safety measures they've suggested, such as wearing a mask. Trump has not hosted daily coronavirus briefings since April, when he disastrously proposed investigating disinfectant as a coronavirus treatment. According to reports, the coronavirus task force, which Fauci is a key member of, continues to meet behind the scenes. Trump and Fauci have also been at odds over the pace of states reopening from lockdown measures. In testimony before Congress in May, Fauci warned of the risk of lifting the restrictions too soon. The president is said to be intent on holding the Republican National Convention in August with no social distancing measures in place. The president recently unveiled a new campaign slogan, "Transition to Greatness," and pledged to lead America's economic resurgence. In the Stat News interview, Fauci said he remained concerned about lifting lockdown measures in areas where infection rates remain high, alluding to the photos that emerged over Memorial Day weekend of people packed at pool parties. So, yeah, man, that was one of the things I was like kind of concerned about, was when I saw people hitting the streets. Instinctively, I was wondering, where the fuck is everybody's mask? Like, instinctively, because I know you're at a protest and you're going to have close contact with a lot of people. Some of these people you do not know. You're going to have contact with some of these police. Some of these, of course, you don't know all these police officers. And the fact that I saw so many people out there without the mask, with, not practicing social distancing, and knowing how it disproportionately affects our community, definitely fucking, it gave me a little bit of pause with some of the ways in which the demonstrations were happening. Like, I understood why the demonstrations were, but at the same time, like, man, where's y'all mask though? Where's y'all mask? Because my fear is that as the nation kind of reopens, we're gonna have a spike in the coronavirus thing, and everything that we're doing now. Like I said, I've been back to work probably like 3-4 weeks now. Probably end up right back at the crib, because now we've got this second wave of coronavirus, knocking on everybody's door. Like that's the one thing that I've been like in the back of my mind this whole time as the demonstrations are happening. Like, hopefully, like, we don't see that that second wave that we keep hearing about, but we don't see that second wave. What do you think about that, though, Cook?
The second wave is coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. Also, I was reading, I don't know if it's been verified, but I was reading it and it made me think that some of the extra law enforcement that are coming into some of these cities to assist with the protests may be coming from facilities that had COVID outbreaks, and that there are some jails that have COVID infected inmates in there, and they're throwing protesters in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of that was going on, if it was happening. I just don't put anything past them at this point. The wave was coming from Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And it's happening because of a very, very, very close friend of mine called and was telling me that her roommate actually was going to his mother's house with his siblings, I think like 1 week in a month, just check on her and check on each other. But for the most part, everybody had been quarantined and home, so it would be just them. But this one particular weekend, the husband brought his wife and 2 kids to see their grandma. And there was another family member who came, a cousin, and he said, "Oh, I just had a little bit of bronchitis," and just kind of got over that and came and hung out with everybody. Well, long story short, now everybody's starting to test positive for COVID.
Yeah.
And it's happening. It's still happening. It's still going around. It's still very much a threat. I had to take my mom to the doctors, as I mentioned earlier, and it's a thing for me because she's been in the house since January. And so that was just the best bet, to keep her quarantined. And I've been quarantined since March. So now that we're going to the doctors and her nurses are started coming back, they wear masks and they check temperatures and stuff and all that, but still, prayerfully, we're still okay. But you know, she needs to see her nurses. She needs care, you know, so it's just where we are with it. And so we're doing the best that we can, man. But going out there for this, it is worth the risk. And I'm prepared to go. I even said myself, if they don't allow us to do mail-in voting, I will put my mask on and don my clothes, my scarf, whatever I need to do in November to vote, to cast my vote.
Yeah, I've already sent in my application for absentee balloting. Like that was the thing that as a matter of fact, Donald Trump called himself like bitching about it, that the Secretary of State here in Michigan decided to mail out those applications for absentee balloting. The minute I got that motherfucker, man, I when I found out I could take a picture of me signing that bitch and email it to the secretary to my county clerk. Oh, nigga, that shit was gone that day. You know what I'm saying? She was gone that day because I cannot wait to vote.
Listen.
Let me tell you this. I cannot wait to vote. So,
say it again.
I cannot wait to vote. All right.
Okay.
So like, the idea that I can vote a little bit sooner to help expedite the fucking indictment of Donald Trump a little bit sooner, goddamn right I'm gonna do it. Goddamn right I'm gonna do it. So yeah, man, I just want y'all to be careful out here, man. Real talk. I really do.
Ooh, yeah.
We got a new segment though. We got a new segment. We're gonna introduce this segment here with the homie Cook, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you always find people, especially in times like these, there are always going to be people who are willing to go the extra mile to antagonize people, right? And as we've seen as of late, there are some white people who are very uncomfortable with the idea that people would be appalled at the death of someone at the hands of the police in a wrongful manner, right? So they're acting out. They're being openly racist. They're being openly antagonistic. And so, you know, Twitter has this thing, not only just Twitter, but Facebook also has a way of finding motherfuckers and finding out what people work. And you know what? When you're on social media and they find out where you work, they find out who you are, I'm going to just say,
Is this shit worth you losing your job? Because you bought to. Because you ain't got no reason.
Hey man, I forget my man's name, but I'm a damn sure make sure he get credit in the show notes, man. I love black people. We so fucking creative, bro. Mm-hmm. But the person who lost a job this week goes by the name of Anthony Brennan III. And Anthony Brennan III thought it would be okay to accost some young kids as they were posting flyers about George Floyd across this park. And we're going to read the story here. This comes out of NBCWashington.com. It says police arrested a Maryland man after a cyclist was caught on video Monday morning on a Maryland bike trail gripping a young woman's arm as he ripped a racial justice flyer out of her hand. One of two other young people with her told News 4's Pat Collins that the cyclist rammed him with his bike and pinned him to the ground. Anthony Brennan III, 60, of Kensington, is charged with 3 counts of second-degree assault. Maryland Attorney General Brian Frost said Montgomery County Park Police have a suspect thanks to the great response to widely circulated video footage of the cyclist, and arrest is expected soon. At the same time, multiple men say that the internet sleuths trying to identify the cyclists have falsely accused them in the attack and tarred their reputations online. It's gonna be some folks out here catching strays when you out here being racist, man. That's the sad part about it. You look way too close to that guy, man. That's the sad part about it. I think it's okay to do your own detective work if you like, but I very much draw the line at putting out names publicly unless there's a positive ID, one man said. A former Montgomery County Police Department employee was falsely accused. The department said in a tweet, a local marketing director also faced a false allegation. In a tweet, the Attorney General thanked the public for his tips, but added, please don't name individuals and risk harm to innocent people. One victim in the attack who asked to remain anonymous said he and others were posting flyers Monday morning in support of George Floyd protests when they came across a cyclist in the Capitol Crescent Trail near MacArthur Boulevard. The video shows the cyclist with a flyer in his hand confronted a woman. She put her hand up to drive him away and shouts, "Get away from me." So, yeah, they found this dude, and his employer actually did fire him.
Yeah.
They did get rid of this guy.
Yeah. You attacked a little girl. What the fuck?
Not only that, just think about, why do you feel so strongly against the idea that a black man should not have been killed by police in this way? Just think about why you feel so viscerally about that. And the fact that other people would be upset that happened. Why are you so mad at that? This is the and of course he would say, I'm not a racist. Most of them never really see themselves as being racist in that moment. I just don't agree with the fact that they were littering on the park.
My life matters.
My life matters too, damn it. I walk out of this house and everyone's mad at me because I'm a white guy. I mean, god damn it, man. This is America. It was founded by white guys and it should be for white guys, you know?
They just want something for free. They don't want to contribute.
I mean, you guys forget that he was trying to use a fucking fake $20 bill, okay? That's not fucking
I don't believe that he was. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't either, but that's what they'll do, right? So yeah, that's you lose your job. We might make that a thing here. I don't know. We might make that a thing. But y'all know what time it is.
What in blue blazes is going on out here? Nigga just say blue blazes.
So our first story here in Blue Blazes, man. Joe Rogan is in Blue Blazes. And the reason why Joe Rogan is in Blue Blazes is right now Joe Rogan is feeling a little bit guilty that he signed a $100 million deal with Spotify for his podcast because he says, you know what? People ain't working right now and I feel gross.
God damn!
So we're going to read the story here. This comes out of Baller Alert. Baller Alert says that a comedian and podcast host Joe Rogan recently signed a massive deal with streaming giant Spotify. The deal, which sees the Joe Rogan Experience streaming exclusively on Spotify, could amount to over $100 million, the Wall Street Journal reports. While many would be happy to ink an enormous deal like that, it isn't sitting right with Rogan himself, who now feels weirdly richer. Since the start of the coronavirus pandemic in March, over 30 million Americans have filed for unemployment. Now, with Rogan sealing an extremely lucrative deal amid the brink of an economic crisis, he says it just feels gross, especially right now when people can't work, Rogan told the New York Times. Not only is the deal seemingly outrageous to him, but it doesn't feel like reality. Like it doesn't register. Seems fake, Rogan stated. Maybe it is. By partnering with Spotify, the Joe Rogan Experience helped raise the company's stock tremendously, adding $1.7 billion to market cap in just 23 minutes. This deal is also far better than any deal most musicians could earn with the streaming company. A musician would need to generate 23 billion streams on Spotify to earn what they're paying Joe Rogan for his podcast rights, assuming a typical 0.00437 payout per stream, musician and critic Ted Goya revealed on Twitter. In other words, Spotify values Rogan more than any musician in the history of the world. Sound fair to you? Despite the impressive deal, Rogan insists he won't let it go to his head. Why would I sell out now? You sell out to get what you want, he added. Okay, so my thing is this. If you feel so gross about it, do you plan on giving the money back?
No.
I don't think he plans on giving that money back. So, a lot of this is just kind of lip service. But the other part of it I thought was kind of interesting with the fact that Joe Rogan, inked this deal was, I'm a podcaster, been a podcaster for a long time, and I'm a part of some podcaster groups, like on Facebook and stuff. And as being a part of some of these Facebook and these podcaster Facebook and groups, the fact that Joe Rogan signed a $100 million podcasting deal so many of these motherfuckers got like came in their pants at the idea that Joe Rogan signed a $100 million
that white man
idea. And it was interesting, like to kind of watch. It was interesting to kind of watch the conversation happen, where like everybody assumed that because Joe Rogan signed for $100 million, that somehow that was going to trickle down to the rest of us. I'm here to tell y'all, man, that ain't going to be the case, right? Like Joe Rogan was already a celebrity before he got into podcasting. Joe Rogan already has a presence in mainstream media with like being a commentator on UFC. He was the host of Fear Factor at one point in time. Joe Rogan already had a space within the mainstream before he got into podcasting. Podcasting is his main vehicle now, but he basically brought the people who fucked with him before with him to his podcasting. Now, some people, may have gotten into Joe Rogan through the podcast, through watching the YouTube clips and everything else. Some of y'all confuse YouTube videos with podcasts too. That's another thing. That's another, conversation altogether. But no, man, like I'm just kind of the mindset that like, okay, like you're not gonna get the money back, but also like the conversation around whether or not, okay, because Spotify gave Joe Rogan $100 million, therefore that means there's going to be more money coming into podcast. I mean, it's going to trickle down to you. Like that ain't always the case. I just kind of want like. Let's pump our brakes on that. Joe Rogan got rich. Kudos to Joe Rogan for getting rich. But that don't necessarily mean one is going to mean a damn thing for you. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. But what do you think, Cliff? Cook?
Did you call me Cliff?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, because I know I let a couple girls and she's it's okay.
Well, my co-host on Beer and Chicken is named Cliff, so that's my bad. I'm so sorry to like insult you with the name of Cliff because that motherfucker, man.
I make an amazing Cliff.
Shout out to my boy Cliff, man. Like,
Cliff ain't better than me. I'm the best Cliff ever. Okay? No other Cliff after me. Like no. No, I think that is something that was extremely white of him to do, and good for him. I don't listen to Joe Rogan, and I'm not going to listen to Joe Rogan. Do I feel that $100 million is going to trickle down to my black ass? Absolutely not. And that's okay, But I think people need to be realistic about what podcasting is.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing more than anything in the world. Like one of the most common questions you see in any of these podcasting groups, especially when it's coming from someone who's just getting into podcasting, one of the first questions they ask is, so how do I monetize my show?
Right.
And you'd be like, yo, do you even have any episodes recorded yet? Like you so worried about the money, you haven't even thought about putting in any like compelling content out for people to connect with, for people to like subscribe to or anything else. Like your first order of business has been like, how much money can I make with podcasting? The other part I'd like to say when it comes to that, I didn't think we was going to do this, but like when it comes to like when people make money podcasting, truthfully speaking, like even some of your smaller podcasters like myself, a lot of the ways in which those folks make money isn't necessarily like directly via the podcast.
Right.
They use podcasting to direct you to some other business that makes them money. Like they'll use the podcast as an advertising arm for their business. And that's how they make money. And you'll see that like a lot of folks still do like, well, yeah, I have this other business and I use my podcast to kind of drive people toward that business. It's an advertising means for them. They may put out some compelling content. They may put out something that's like that's worthy for the consumption, but understand that like when they're making money, it's because they have this other business that's involved with it and they're driving you towards that in order to make money. There's not a lot of podcasters out here making a shit ton of bread strictly off of the podcast. There's not a lot of them out there. We got some folks who are out here killing it. Shout out to Rod and Karen. Shout out to with the rest of the people I know that make money off of their podcasts are celebrities. Rod and Karen is the only ones that I really know that like really make like, that are doing good based on the podcast alone. But other than that, man, I'm just saying like, yo, don't get into this game because you think you ought to make a shit ton of bread, man, because it doesn't happen for everybody like that. It just doesn't.
It's like getting into any other area. you have to pay your dues. You just got to pay your dues. That's the way I look at it. And it's something like I've said it before. And I know when I said it, people were like, whatever, I don't believe you, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, no, I was like, I do it for the love. I do it because I want to do it. You know, it's something I do because, like you said, like, nobody knew who the fuck I was before I started this shit.
Nobody. Like, I didn't know.
Not a damn so. And like, guess what? Niggas still don't know who the fuck I am.
Like, that's the thing, man. Like, I remember the first, like, I've been recognized once when I was at work. And it was because I was a YouTuber though. Before I did the podcast, and I was a YouTuber, and I was putting out like, 10-minute videos. Just, YouTube used to have that limit. Like, your video couldn't be no longer than 10 minutes unless you was a YouTube partner. And then I became a YouTube partner, and I was able to put up, videos a tad bit longer than 10 minutes. But like, I remember being at work and somebody recognized me from the YouTube video. And I was like, shit. One, I didn't want the work and like like that shit connected in any sort of way. But then two, I didn't know if they were like, for or against your boy. You know what I'm saying? Because I got some pretty strong opinions about shit. So like when you in A, like, oh man, you missed the span. I'm like, who asking? You know what I'm saying? Like, who's asking? Because I'm in this man's house and I'm in my official work capacity, and he's talking about something that I do in my personal time. And depending on how he feels about what I say, that could affect my money. That could affect my livelihood. So yeah, it's something to be said for that. But like, yeah, like I tell folks all the time, man, like with podcasting, I know, like, and I know we're riffing off of this because of the Joe Rogan thing, but like, yo, don't get into this because you think you about to like kill the game and make a bunch of bread. Do this because you thought it's a cool idea. You want to amplify your voice. You want to amplify the voices of others. You think you have something, positive to contribute to the, to the discourse, whatever reason you get into it. But like, if you think you're going to just get into this game and just like kill it and make a shit ton of bread, you might have a rude awakening. So, yeah, that's what we got. We got that in Blue Blazers. Now, another story that we got in Blue Blazers. So last week we talked about this dude that he drew a bow and arrow on protesters, as he said, all lives matter, out in Utah. Well, they just charged that motherfucker with 3 felonies out there.
You shouldn't have been talking shit.
Yeah. So, let me go ahead and pull this up because I think, let's see, where's the story? Salt Lake City Tribune. So we're going to read the story. His name is Brandon E. McCormick. And he said he showed up at a Saturday downtown protest armed with a bow and arrow to protect police from unruly demonstrators. He had to protect the police, y'all. He had to protect the police. Now the 57-year-old Taylorville man, who has spent nearly 2 decades of his life behind bars in California and was once convicted of battery against a public safety officer, faces 3 felony counts for widely shared video. Faces 3 felony counts for widely shared video has shown aiming his weapon at protesters. All 3 counts are Utah's lowest grade of felony. Well, ain't that some shit? Each is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. McCormick was also charged with the misdemeanor count of threatening or using a weapon in a fight. That count carries up to a year in jail. The Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office, which filed the charges, also asks that a warrant be issued for McCormick's arrest with the bail set at $100,000. There was no record of McCormick being booked into the county jail as of 6:30 p.m. McCormick created one of the most talked about scenes on the day when hundreds of protesters gathered near Salt Lake City Hall and downtown library to protest the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis and against racism and police violence. He parked his car in front of the library on a corner where many demonstrators had gathered and exited the vehicle. In a posted video, McCormick responded to a stranger who asked him if he calls himself an American with, "Yes, I'm American. All lives matter." The charging documents say McCormick also brandished a knife at demonstrators. He then went to the back seat of his car. The documents say retrieved a bow and aimed an arrow at those around him. The knife and archery set appeared to be the basis for 2 of the charges against McCormick, accusing him of being a felon in possession of a dangerous weapon. I'm going to just say this right now. It was beautiful. It was magnifique. To see once he pulled that bow and arrow out, and one protester like rushed in to keep him from shooting the motherfucker, but then everybody else swarmed that car and whooped his.
Get him!
Oh my God! Like they whooped his ass. Yes, they did.
Beat his ass. They did.
Yeah, he got 3 felonies though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They probably add that to the felonies he already. I mean, because he apparently, like, you know,
was already they wanted it.
Already locked up. You know what I'm saying? Think of like I'm gonna protect the police. Think of the police out there with fucking tanks and fucking armed fucking they got bulletproof vests and shields and riot gear on, but you gonna roll up in your Dodge Caliber with a goddamn bow and arrow. Oh man, that's in Blue Blazers. Another story we got here in Blue Blazers. This is something that it kind of speaks to what I was kind of alluding to last week, man. You know, when the whole idea of, you know, why are we tearing up our own shit? Well, apparently there was some folks on Twitter, some bad actors on Twitter, who were using a Twitter account by the name of Antifa, or at least they were branding themselves as Antifa. But it turns out that this group behind the account was actually Identity Europa, which is a white nationalist group.
Got him! Got him!
Yeah, so we get to see what the fuck, man? Shut up, man. Damn. What you doing? Okay. BusinessInsider.com tells us a Twitter account that claimed to represent a national Antifa organization and that urged protesters to loot white neighborhoods was actually run by white nationalist group Identity Europa, according to a Twitter spokesperson. The account, which posted under the handle Antifa_US, falsely aligned itself with ongoing Black Lives Matter protests nationwide. One tweet called for protesters to move into residential areas and take what's ours was retweeted hundreds of times as a Sunday night. The account was removed Monday for breaking Twitter's rules against platform manipulation, spam, and inciting violence. The Twitter spokesperson told Business Insider that it isn't the first time that users linked to Identity Europa have created fake or inflammatory accounts to spread hateful content. The Antifa_US account was created by the same person who created those previously identified Identity Europa accounts, the spokesperson said. The Antifa movement is a loosely affiliated group of anti-fascism activists, but does not have a national organization, defined structure, or leader. President Donald Trump designated Antifa as a terrorist organization Sunday and has blamed it for organizing the property destruction seen at some protests nationwide, but there's little evidence of any such coordinated effort. Meanwhile, some white nationalists have advocated for the acceleration of conflict between protesters and police in order to spur race riots. Twitter said it was continuing to monitor platform manipulation and post inciting violence as nationwide protests continue. So, yeah, like I said, this is some of the things that I was kind of talking about last week, where, you know, there were bad actors within the protests who were tearing shit up many times at the objection of many of the protesters that were surrounding them. There was the video of the 2 white women who were spray painting BLM on the Starbucks while a sister was telling them, hey man, we didn't ask y'all to do that. Y'all need to cut that shit out, because the moment the police come around here, they're gonna think that we did this shit. The news is gonna think that we did this shit. There was also that video of that dude that was walking around in all black. He had hammers and he was busting open windows and shit. And people were telling him, hey man, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you over here? Why would you do that? Like, there's has been documented evidence of people, bad actors, who are trying to incite violence within these peaceful protests. And so my thing was just trying not to have that knee-jerk reaction of always saying, well, we tearing down our own shit, when there are way too many instances of these sorts of things happening. And I just kind of wanted folks to pay attention to that shit before you hopped on the backs of black folks yet again. Say, why are we doing this shit to our own? You know what I'm saying? So that's in Blue Blaze. Did you have any thoughts on that, Cook?
Listen, y'all niggas better have insurance out here. That's all I got. I'm not. This shit is necessary. It's what's got to happen. And I get it. Yes, there are some bad actors out there. I don't have a problem with rioting. I'm sorry. Rioting doesn't bother me. Nope.
I hear you.
The only time it's wrong is when you're doing it because your football team won. That's when it's fucking stupid.
Or when you lose a football coach. or when your football team loses,
right? Or when
it happens whether they win or lose. That's the tripped out part about like sports riots. Like it happens whether your team wins
or if one of your coaches was a prolific child rapist.
Oh man,
shout
out to Penn State. You
know, like they went ham over Joe Biden.
Like, man, couches were never safe. Like they were never safe in fucking. Shout out to all the victim couches out there. You know. We got another story here in Blue Blazes. As we talk about this exact same thing, a woman incited a riot on her own Facebook Live video. Michigan police said. So a 22-year-old woman was charged Tuesday after inciting a riot and malicious destruction after she posted a video on Facebook Live encouraging others to loot and destroy businesses during a violent demonstration in Michigan. According to her arrest affidavit, Alexandria Allie Lyons can be heard telling her friends to throw bricks and other objects at the windows of multiple businesses in downtown Grand Rapids. She also picks up a brick and contemplates going to the courthouse with it. On Saturday night, about 100 businesses were destroyed, 7 police vehicles were set ablaze, and several dumpster fires were also set and spread to nearby structures. The Michigan National Guard, Michigan State Police, and Grand Rapids Police were on high alert, protecting the downtown area from other incidents. Mayor Rosalind Bliss set a 7 p.m. curfew on Sunday and Monday to prevent further violence. Now, I'm going to pull this up so you guys can take a look at what Allie looks like. Hold on just a second. This is Alexandria Lyons, who went on Facebook Live to tell you guys, hey, we should throw bricks into these stores. We should start some shit. Wouldn't it be great, guys?
Oh my God, it's going to be so fun.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I was rioting and it was so exhilarating, you know?
We should do this like...
I never had so much fun in all of my life. I can't believe it. Like you have not lived until you've thrown a brick into the police department's window. Okay, like
it was like my Eat, Pray, Love moment.
Oh my God! I mean, it was so wonderful. We should do this often. We should do
exhilarating. The power, the thrill.
We should have like brunch rioting. You know, brunch rioting could be a thing. We can make it a thing. You know,
I bet if I throw this brick hard enough, I can totally have an orgasm.
Oh my God. Man.
I think I can.
Here's the other part about it though. Like the whole idea of like doing this shit on Facebook Live, man. Like people are actually out here filming their own crimes, bro. Like, y'all snitching on y'allself. I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Y'all are snitching on yourselves, man. So that's crazy. But that has been Blue Blazes.
What in Blue Blazes is going on out here? This nigga just say Blue Blazes.
Hold on, tomorrow's in the shit like total amaze balls. Oh my God, amaze balls. I can't believe it. Oh my God. That's funny, man. But y'all know what time it is.
That I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Yeah, that's enough of that shit. It's proud to be an American time here at the Spirit Report Podcast. And our first story here in Proud to be an American is so Governor Ralph Northam, man, like that blackface shit came out and he been like all about the movement, yo. Is he getting rid of that goddamn Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia? All right, we get this story here. This comes out of U.S. News and World Report. Man, I ain't seen these motherfuckers since the college rankings. Let's see. It says Virginia Governor Ralph Northam is expecting to announce plans Thursday to remove one of the country's most iconic monuments to the Confederacy, a statue of General Robert E. Lee along Richmond's prominent Monument Avenue. A senior administration official told the Associated Press. The move would be an extraordinary victory for civil rights activists whose calls for the removal of that monument and others in this former capital of the Confederacy have been resisted for years. That is a symbol for so many people, black and otherwise, of a time gone by of hate and oppression and being made to feel less than, said Dale J. Jones, a black lawmaker from Norfolk. He said he was overcome by emotion when he learned the statue was to come down. The Democratic governor will direct the statue to be moved off its massive pedestal and put into storage while his administration seeks input on a new location. I mean, how about y'all just destroy the motherfucker? Like, what the hell, man? According to the official who spoke on condition and anonymity, because the official was not authorized to speak before the governor's announcement. Northam's decision comes amid turmoil across the nation or around the world over the death of George Floyd, a black man who died after a Minneapolis police officer pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for several minutes, even after he stopped moving. So, yeah, man, I don't understand why they feel like there's this consternation as to what they're to do with the statues when they get rid of them. Like, hey, man, just melt that motherfucker down and turn it into something else. Like, what are they hanging on to that shit for? Like, you know, we know why the damn statues came to be. Well, I mean, some of us know how the statues came to be and why they're there, but like, if you know that it invokes this level of response from people on both sides of, the aisle, but if you know that this that statue being there is a representative of hate in a time where, as we talk about like fealty to the nation, so to speak, like these were folks who had no fealty for this nation. They were traitors to this nation. Fought a whole war against these motherfuckers. Why are you you allowing these motherfuckers to have monuments in your country, but then on top of that, you're like, oh, what are we gonna do with them? Like, man, melt that shit down and turn it into like a Heisman Trophy or something, man. Get the fuck out of here. You know?
It's a lot all at once.
Turn it to a Heisman, so some black people walk around with it like, hey, look what I got. You know what I'm saying?
You said melt it down.
Melt that bitch down to a Heisman, man. And then all the black college dudes are going to HBCUs and shit because like these white college players,
So one of this young man just left his school and signed up for Alcorn State. I forgot where he was. Yeah, he did it. And another young man was like, when he's looking at these schools, he said it's going to be a bunch of HBCUs on the table. And I was like, and I can't remember who it was who came out with a tweet and was like, it doesn't matter where you go to school. You can go to an HBCU. If you're good, you're still going to make it to the league.
Exactly. Like, here's the thing, though. Like, so, like, that's the part that, like, and I get it. Like, these kids, they want to be on TV. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, when you want to, you want to play in the NFL. Ultimately, these kids want to be on TV. They want to get used to being on TV. They want to get used to playing in front of large crowd. And if we're being 100% honest, some of the largest fucking football stadiums are at predominantly white institutions. The University of Michigan holds 107,000 motherfucking people in it. Even Beaver Stadium in Pennsylvania, at Penn State, I think they hold like 104,000 people. Like wherever the University of Tennessee plays, I think they hold over 100,000 people. So like these stadiums are fucking huge. Tennessee State plays in the same stadium that the Tennessee Titans play in. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't know that because Tennessee State, I guess like our football team hasn't really been like the shit for a while. But when I was there, like that was around the first time they started playing. It used to be Adelphia Coliseum. I forget what the fuck they call it now, but like they played in the same stadium that the Tennessee Titans played in. And like, it's not a D1 school, but check this out. Like Steve McNair went to, I believe, Alcorn State. Mm-hmm. He was the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans when they went to the Super Bowl. Yep. Jerry Rice goes down as probably the greatest wide receiver of all time. Yep. Went to Mississippi Valley State. Mm-hmm. Like Richard Dent with the Tennessee State. Like there's so many different like all-time great NFL players who went to HBCUs who didn't go to some of these larger white institutions and they had great careers. So like the idea, I think the thing is these kids don't necessarily know that as long as you are a good player, the scouts will find you.
Yep. That's their job, the fucking scout.
They will find you. You don't have to go like it. The other part about it, and I don't think this gets talked about though, and it may not necessarily just be the the stadiums that they play in and the access to television. It's the facilities. And some of these schools have immaculate fucking facilities because they put so much money into it. And a lot of our HBCUs don't necessarily have those resources to have those sorts of like training facilities and whatnot for these players and the dietary regimen that a lot like the funding just isn't there in a lot of ways for that. But you win enough. And you start seeing a lot of that happen. Now, to put that on an 18-year-old kid to make that decision to go to this place when he like, man, I come from struggle, man. Do I have to continue this shit for 3 more years when I know I can go here and it won't be as bad? Like, there's that conundrum there.
But what I'm seeing from some of these athletes, they're talking about the culture at these schools, and they're saying it seems like the only time they feel love and appreciation is when they're playing.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily connected to the community they're looked at. Listen, everybody assumes they're from the ghetto anyway. And that's the other thing. Like, even when you go to these PWIs, I never went to a PWI. I don't know. All I know is from that black girl whose roommate damn near killed her by rubbing her toothbrush in the toilet and all the other foul shit she did to her. I've been on, let's just go ahead and divest from PWIs and go ahead and divert all of our investment into HBCUs. And I know for a fact the state of Maryland owes all our HBCUs money. It's about 3-4 HBCUs in the state of Maryland, and the state owes them money and is cutting their budgets and fucking with it. So no, Hillary had an $80 billion investment plan for HBCUs specifically. I think that should be a part of this reform package that we're getting with these police. We need HBCU funding, and it should be a part of every platform for our African American community. I think that's something that should be automatically funded with grants. I think that any African American students who attends an HBCU should go for free. Honestly.
Yeah, truthfully, like when we start, well, we're not talking about this now, but when I hear people talk about reparations, one of the first things I think about is like the advantages that a lot of white folks got from having, a thorough education. And so I be feeling like, part of your reparations package should include a free college education for black folks. Part of your reparations package should include like tax-free black living for a certain amount of time. Like, income taxes for black folks, like that's not a thing. Like I can't pay income tax because for so long these resources have been denied to us, and this is one way to kind of give back those resources.
Yeah, we couldn't even collect Social Security initially until after, what was it, the Civil Rights Act passed. So that means your grandparents who worked, they paid into Social Security. They didn't collect Social Security until after 1965.
Yeah, think about all those black men that went over to fight, for wars for this nation.
Drew Brees don't know who they are, so they didn't have it.
Right. Only to come back home and that GI Bill doesn't necessarily benefit them. So there are different ways in which like the nation could, like, that doesn't necessarily include a check, which I know a lot of motherfuckers like cut the check. Like, yeah, but like truthfully speaking, if we wanted to be honest about how that could happen, like, hey man, there's going to have to be some, there would have to be some systemic changes as to how black people contribute monetarily to the society, where, we need that leg up the same way that y'all had that leg up for the better part of this nation's founding. So, yeah, man, that's in Proud to Be an American. Now, we got another story here in Proud to Be an American. Apparently, Alaskan Senator Lisa Murkowski says she's struggling with her support of fucking Donald Trump's reelection.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So let's read this story. This comes out of The Independent over from the UK. It says, in a remarkable potential break from her party, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski told reporters on Thursday that she is struggling with whether to back Donald Trump's reelection bid this November. The Alaska senator also lauded former Defense Secretary James Mattis' condemnation of this week of Mr. Trump, saying the retired Marine general's letter to the Atlantic denouncing his former bosses were true and honest and necessary and overdue. Ms. Murkowski said she was really thankful for Mr. Mattis' letter because she has been struggling for the right words to express her thoughts on the president's handling of recent events, such as the anti-police brutality protests that have swept the nation in the wake of the death of Minneapolis man George Floyd. When I saw General Mattis' comments yesterday, I felt like perhaps we were getting to a point where we can be more honest with the concerns that we might hold internally and have the courage of our own convictions to speak up, she said. Now, I'm going to just say y'all right now, did I think that I would see this level of, response from Lisa Murkowski?
Not never.
Do I believe Lisa Murkowski?
Not never.
Every last man, they need to hang it the entire fuck up. I believe they saw them poll numbers. The writing is on the wall for them. If there's a whole ass election in November, and now they're trying to duck for cover, and it's just like too late. It's too late. You had 3 years to oppose this man, and you didn't.
I feel like this. And this goes back to that conversation we were having a little bit earlier about Charlemagne and Rush Limbaugh and the Breakfast Club and that whole thing coming together, and Rush Limbaugh making a point to go onto that show so he can speak his mind as to how bad it was, what happened to George Floyd. I think the Republican Party right now sees the writing on the wall that they may be in the political wilderness because of the ways in which they've embraced Donald Trump and, and his whole thing. Like Lisa Murkowski has had plenty of opportunities to rebuke Donald Trump, and she's not taking that opportunity. Her, Susan Collins, these people that present themselves as moderate Republicans. I could just go back to the impeachment of Donald Trump just earlier this year.
Yep.
The only Republican to vote to convict Donald Trump in the impeachment was Mitt Romney. Lisa Murkowski was kind of waffling. Susan Collins kind of waffling. But ultimately, we knew what the results of that trial was going to be, that the Republicans were just going to, give him a rubber stamp. And once Donald Trump was impeached and nothing happened of said impeachment, he felt emboldened. This is exactly what the fuck we thought was going to happen once Donald Trump had been impeached and nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to him. And so for her to now be out here talking about, well, I'm struggling with the idea of supporting his reelection. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, you were perfectly okay with the nomination of the judges, with some of the other legislation that Donald Trump was trying to, ram through. Like, you're perfectly okay with that. He's the imperfect vehicle for the shit that they want. But ultimately, she's okay with a lot of the shit that Donald Trump has been pulling. So this idea that suddenly she's found her conscience when George Floyd dies and she doesn't agree with how he's handled the protests. Like, how in the fuck did you think he was going to handle these protests? He's showing you exactly who he's always been. So the fact that she's coming out now saying, I'm struggling with this, like, it should never have been a struggle. You should all be like, yeah, nah, fuck that guy. He doesn't represent anything that I represent. And if the Republican Party who had any like real convictions and real fucking principles behind them, they'd have been repudiated this dude a long fucking time ago. But power is intoxicating. And because y'all had power for this period of time, you like, yo, we got to ram everything. Because here's the other part. I think Republicans know, like, our time with this shit is going to be short. We got to get a lot of this shit through because we're going to be on the outs for a while.
Yeah.
So we got to get a lot of this shit through so that we can have some level of influence on how the American populace or how the government moves, because we own the minority on a lot of shit. Conservatism, Republicans, like the Republican electorate is dying, is small, is losing more influence by the day. And this is why you have voter suppression. This is why you have gerrymandering. Like, they're trying to rig the game so that they can have some level of influence because they know that their numbers don't reflect the level of influence that they should have.
Yep.
And so Lisa Murkowski saying she's struggling with this, I don't think she's struggling. She's been politically expedient.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Lisa Murkowski has been, politically expedient. And so, yeah, I ain't buying this shit about her being her struggling with her idea of supporting Donald Trump. We knew who the fuck Donald Trump was before he got elected. He's not showing you anything different now.
And then don't hide behind your generals with their milquetoast. We're Americans and we follow the Constitution, blah, blah. That man has been stomping all over that shit since he got here.
Yeah.
And doing so much shit that y'all daily have to tell him, you can't do that, sir. That's illegal, sir.
So we got hold on. I'm sorry, Cook, but we got a comment here. It's from Tim the Russian.
Oh,
Tim, are you really Russian? Tim, are you really Russian? Don't fuck with us, man. But says conservative is the new counterculture. Do you agree? You know what? No, I don't think conservative is the new counterculture. I think conservative is has been the culture, truthfully speaking, in America. I think that's kind of been the modus operandi, and this is part of the reason why there's been so much upheaval as of late, because the conservative way of thinking has been by and large the way a lot of Americans have moved. And there's been a shift in how we look at a lot of different things politically, a lot of the way in which we move socially. I think there's been a bit of a shift, and this is I feel like conservatism is on like the death's grips now. Like, yo, we gotta have some level of control over this, otherwise our way of life is gone forever. And that's why you see such a violent reaction to any level of change right now. People are only asking for equity.
Yeah. And
you're getting this level of response for like requests for equity. You know, so yeah, I don't know if we can ever really say conservatism is the counterculture. I think conservatism has pretty much been like kind of the mainstream. There's a lot of people, even black people. There's a lot of black people who hold some very conservative views on certain topics. They may not necessarily be conservative on everything, but there's some things that they hold very conservative to their hearts. You know what I'm saying? So, by and large, I think conservatism is very mainstream. It's not counterculture. It's very mainstream. But the reason why you're seeing such a violent shift now is because there is a turn. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are having, much more freer, much more liberal interpretations as to how they think this thing should move. And this is why we're like this right now.
Yeah.
Like this right now.
Yeah, I think some people feel the writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
And it is for some people. Like, yeah, if you aren't with the shits, yeah, like, well, for me, is what part of equity doesn't necessarily mean you get less? What do they think? And see, here's the thing. This is the real deal. The fear is that we will do to them what they have done to us. That's what it all boils down to. Yeah, that's what it all boils down to. That's their fear.
It's all that fear. Like, and there's that, was that saying that, like, equity seems like oppression to those who are privileged.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, like, you've got to give up a little bit of something so that everybody can kind of live on an equal playing field. And a lot of people are just not comfortable with the idea that they got to give something up.
And that's the thing. The people who think they have to give something up don't.
Yeah. Yeah, by and large, you really don't. Like, that's the thing, man. Like, it doesn't cost you a dime to be a decent fucking human being.
It doesn't. You don't feel every inch of your taxes now. So, and that's the other fucked up part, is like, they don't understand that they too will benefit from some of these changes.
Yeah.
I mean, when black people do well, everybody does well. Fuck them.
I mean, like, truthfully, if you put it like that, yeah, like, if black people are doing well, that means the nation is doing fucking exponentially well. You know what I'm saying? If black people are, like, because as, like, based on the history of this nation, black people have tended to be on the bottom of the way in which folks get treated. Like, so if black people are feeling good about America, can you imagine how fucking awesome America has got to be if black folks is in America? Like, man, this is a damn good place to be, man. I wouldn't want to be nowhere. like that's just how crazy it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we feeling so good about where we at, man, imagine how good white people got to be feeling about where they at. If the niggas is even like, yo, man, this is dope. You know what I'm saying?
They didn't even realize, like, oh damn, like, I was paying a little too much for my health insurance, and it does feel good to have a little extra in the check every pay period, because we aren't, paying out the ass for this stuff.
I can pay for that $8 Whopper because I make $60 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't mad. I'm not mad at the people at Burger King or something because they making $15 to $20 an hour. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm being, like, there's that thing. Like, people want to have their foot on someone's neck. There's that need to feel like you're better than somebody else. There's a need to have that hierarchy that is intoxicating to people, and that's why you have so many folks. Like, again, we go back to this. So many folks holding on so viscerally, so tight to the weight, to this status quo, because they feel like, yo, if I don't have this, I don't have shit. I don't mean nothing to nobody. Like, it's a weird fucking mind trip.
Yeah.
To, like, know that, like, yo, I don't, even if I give this up, I'm still in a good spot. Oh yeah, man. That's in Proud to Be an American. Now, our last story here that's in Proud to Be an American, man. You know, you got this is how you know it's a fucked up time for Donald Trump to be president of the United States, man. George W. Bush came out and said that George Floyd's death means it's time for people to listen and not lecture. Yeah. We get this out of yahoonews.com. It says the former president, George W. Bush released a statement Tuesday about the police killing of George Floyd, but emphasized it wasn't his place to say how the country should handle its systemic racism problem. Instead, he said it was time for the Americans to recognize the repeated violation of the rights of Black Americans who didn't get an urgent and adequate response from American institutions, in a statement posted on the George W. Bush Presidential Center website. Laura and I are anguished by the brutal suffocation of George Floyd, and I was disturbed by the injustice and fear that suffocate our country. Yet we have resisted the urge to speak out because this is not the time for us to lecture. It is a time for us to listen. It is time for America to examine our tragic failures, and as we do, we will also see some of our redeeming strengths. The 43rd president noted that it remains a shocking failure that many African Americans, especially young African American men, are harassed and threatened in their own country. Bush is the second president after an essay Monday by Barack Obama to speak out about Floyd, 46, a Black man who died last week after a white Minneapolis police officer, Derek Colvin, knelt on his neck for nearly 9 minutes while Floyd was handcuffed on the ground. Video of the arrest was over suspected counterfeit $20. Y'all know we know the details. Bush in his statement added that peaceful protest, when protected by responsible law enforcement, makes for a better future. But then Bush, who the New York Times noted never made any public statements against police brutality during his 2 terms in office, then said that Floyd's death, one of a long series of similar tragedies, raises a long overdue question of how does America end its systemic racism? The only way to see ourselves in a true light is to listen to the voices of so many who are hurting and grieving. Those who set out to silence those voices do not understand the meaning of America or how it becomes a better place. I'm gonna tell you this right now, man. It's a strange motherfucker world to be living in when George W. Bush sounds like the voice of reason. This is how bad it's gotten. Because I'm old enough to remember when when George Bush was president, can't get no worse than this, right? Right.
I mean, honestly, there were a few times under this administration where I was like,
well, yeah, under this one, I'm saying when George W. Bush was president at the time, we thought that was the worst it could possibly get. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And here we are 8 years, 16 years later, and we're like, yo, man, George W. Bush wasn't all that bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could almost tolerate George W. Bush now.
I'm not even going to front. I did good under Bush Jr.
Say that again?
I said I did good under Bush Jr.
Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I damn near lost my house, but I did good, after that fucking housing bubble. Salary-wise, I did good.
Yeah, I was broke when George. I was broke. I was unemployed like a motherfucker, man. It was times wasn't good, man. I think towards the end of George W. Bush's presidency is like when I latched on to the current company that I'm with now, and I've been there ever since. But yeah, like my salary didn't start going, but that was, I wouldn't even necessarily link that with like who was president. I'm a part of a union, so like my salaries have always been like contractually negotiated before I even took those positions. So shout out to unions. I'm just saying that right now. Some of y'all voted yourselves out of that fucking. Oh my God, that's a whole other topic. But yeah, man, I'm just saying like
if you let the union slip by you, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to this a few times where, like, here in Michigan, there was a ballot initiative to make Michigan a right-to-work state. But what happened was, like, it really was just an attempt by Republicans to bankrupt unions because it forces unions to represent people who don't pay dues. So if you're not being forced to pay dues into the union when it comes. But you get all of the benefits of said union, and like, where does the union get its money to lobby politicians for, on behalf of the workers? Where do unions, lobby for, better insurance rates for its members? Like all these things that come with union membership that you pay into. you don't necessarily you able to get that without actually paying into it, And so a lot of folks were voting against that, or they were voting for that to pretty much gut paying union dues. Like people wanted to be a part of the union, but they didn't want to pay the union dues. And I'm like, I've seen this at my own job. I've seen this at my own job. We pay 1% of our paycheck to the union. 1%. So if I make $300, I done gave them $3. If I make $3,000, I've given them $30. Case of beer, bro. Like I'm not missing that money. So, but the benefits that come with that is I'm able to go to the doctor when I need to go to the doctor. I'm able to go get new glasses when I need to go get glasses, that kind of shit. But, a lot of people have allowed for their disdain for the unions to kind of talk themselves into economic positions that are to their own disadvantage. Because truthfully speaking, union members tend to make more than their non-represented counterparts. You just do. And it's a reason why that a lot of these companies don't want unionization there. There's a lot of auto plants that opened up in the South that are non-union, and they're paying their workers a good wage, but they're not paying as much as the union workers get paid. And so there's an effort to keep that the way that it is. Because think about this: if you are able to pay a worker $27 to $30 an hour, if you're able to pay them that much, one worker, how much money is that company making off of that worker? This is how you got to kind of really think about how much are they making off of that worker? If they can afford to get that one person $30 an hour with the benefits and everything, they're making much more than that. So, we can go on and on about that. I could talk about that all day long, but going back to George W. Bush, like I said, it's a weird time where we're living in, where even George W. Bush looks good to us.
Woo. Because my thing is, I feel like I knew something was up when Jeb Bush didn't win the primary. I knew then the fix was in and the jig was high.
Yeah. Well, I knew the jig was in when so many people were falling for the okie doke and saying that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were two sides of the same coin.
That part, I was like,
when I started noticing that conversation happening so much around me from people that I know, I'm like, nigga, are you serious? Are you serious right now? So yeah, man, that's what it is. But it's almost time for us to get up out of here. But before we do,
the champ is here. The champ is here. The champ is here. The champ is here.
All right. It's Champ of the Week time here at the Spare Report Podcast. And our Champ of the Week this week is none other than Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. All right. Now, the reason why Muriel Bowser is the Champ of the Week this week here at the Spare Report is 16th Street, I believe that is now like Black Lives Matter Road or some shit. They painted Black Lives Matter on the street leading up to the White House. This comes after Donald Trump did that fucking publicity stunt of walking to the church, moving protesters out of the way so that he can do that walk with the holding the Bible and everything, and actually putting up fencing one block and like on a 1 block radius around the White House. Listen, I'm very much appreciative of the mayors and some of the police chiefs around this nation who, Black Lives Matter Plaza, Black Lives Matter Plaza. But I'm appreciative of the mayors, of the police chiefs, of some of the police officers who have stood in solidarity with some of these protesters, man. Because truthfully speaking, I know not everybody agrees with this movement. That just is what it is. But as I've said repeatedly on this particular episode, is that many of the things that are happening right now, they only happen because people took to the streets. They only happen because people let their voices be heard. They only happen because some shit got told to fuck up. And this is why we're seeing some of the movement where even the fucking NFL commissioner is saying, we was wrong. It does not happen without people taking to the streets to demand that some changes happen. So, the fact that there's some level of official recognition of that that there's some level of official backing of that coming from some of these government, like, you know, like, again, she's from the mayor of Washington, D.C., is dope. I think it's dope. And it speaks to a level of representation that a lot of people have been asking for. And it speaks somewhat to the idea that, you know, putting people in the position who grew up in the communities who look like us can have some level of effect. It doesn't always happen that way. We talked about that when it comes to police officers. But the idea that, you know, Mayor Bowser went this step, especially in solidarity with the protesters after what happened with Donald Trump and those protesters, so he can walk across the fucking street to go to this church and hold up a Bible. Yo, I thought that was dope of her. And I'm a fan. And she's the champ this week here at the Spanish Report Podcast. Real talk. But before we get on up out of here, I'd like to thank my friend Cook for coming through and fucking with us over here at the Spanish Report Podcast. Hey, Cook, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Hey, you can catch me where most RSS feeds are picked up. But if you really want to see me talking the most shit, you can catch me on IG at Cook_Simmons. You can catch me on Facebook. There's a Highly Inappropriate fan page. I see some of you all are liking it.
Hit up that Facebook group, man. It's lit. That Facebook is lit.
Thank you. As soon as my new episodes start coming back up, you can definitely check the page for it. It'll be there. And occasionally you can find me on Twitter. I don't be saying nothing really. But at the old Cooking channel. But like, I'll just be out cheer or whatever. And as soon as the time permits, you all are going to be getting some new material from me, so I'm looking forward to it. Lots to talk about, lots to discuss, lots going on. So, you know, I always try to make it, you know, cool for you all whenever I do come around. So just be on the lookout for that. And thank you for having me, Stan. Every time you get me here, I'm fully charged. I'm revved up. So
we be having shit to talk about, man. That's how we get down. It's how we get down.
And listen, you got to come back, you know, and sit with me too. And we got
indeed. Just say the word.
Absolutely. I'll definitely be in your inbox. No problem.
All right. Now, let me remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Spanish Report Podcast. Let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up our hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. And if you're watching us live, you can chop it up with us live. Call that number while we talking shit. You can talk some shit with us, right? So area code 313-288-0485 is a hotline number. You can also email us here at feedback@thespanreport.com. That's feedback@thespanreport.com. Leave us an email. Of course, we will read those emails and reply to those emails here like we did tonight. Hit us up on our website, www.thespanreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can vote in the polls when we put those polls up. You can leave comments there. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really do appreciate every dime over here at the Spanish Report Podcast Network. Shout out to our Patreon patrons who are the golden circle of the Spanish Report Podcast Network for allowing us to broadcast this show here live on Facebook and YouTube. You can also hit up our store from the website. So go ahead and get yourself some merch. You can't get this t-shirt, but we got some other t-shirts in that store, man. So go ahead and cop yourself some merch. And we really do appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. The 5-star reviews on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio are the ones that get read here live on the show. And we really appreciate y'all who do that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Spanish Report Podcast Network. And that's it. No. I'm sorry. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Span. My bad. It's so much shit, man. But still, I want y'all to get all of it, right? But like I said, I want to thank Cook for coming through and chopping it up with us tonight, man. It was real fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And we will talk to you guys again. But until next time, fam. Peace.
Peace.